Chapter 1130. The heaven and earth profound stones that filled the sky blossomed with dazzling light as they spun around Tang Zheng, making it hard for the eyes to take in. Tang Zheng stared straight ahead, his expression solemn as he watched this scene unfold. The dark stones of heaven and earth flew up, and the foundation of the formation was shaken. The formation was about to be broken. Crash! The four walls collapsed quickly, and the space trembled more violently as if it was about to collapse. The formation was originally a different space created by the ancient people. Once the foundation of the formation was shaken, the space could no longer exist. Crack! With a crisp sound, the chains that trapped the five-clawed golden dragon opened automatically. The dark iron of 9 serenities could not be shaken by ordinary weapons and magic treasures. Only by breaking the formation would the chains open. The five-clawed golden dragon's eyes shone with a dazzling golden light. He was ecstatic and skeptical. He slowly took one of his dragon claws out of the chains, as if he could not believe that all this was real. For hundreds of years, he had imagined this scene many times. Now he finally got rid of these damn chains. He looked at the other dragon claws. The remaining 4 dragon claws were firmly locked in the chains. Crack! Another chain was opened. He finally believed that all this was real. He could not wait to retract his dragon claws and break free from the chains. Tang Zheng saw this scene from the corner of his eyes, and his heart was filled with disappointment. The arrogant five-clawed golden dragon actually had such a cautious side. Perhaps these hundreds of years of imprisonment had too great of an impact on it. He quickly gathered his thoughts and waved his hand in the air. A ray of light burst out from Sumeru world. Whoosh! Whoosh! All the dark stones of heaven and earth disappeared, and were absorbed into Sumeru world. Boom! 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 In an instant, the 4 walls collapsed and turned into a dark void. The trembling became more and more intense and ripples spread out. Crack! Crack! The remaining 3 chains were opened, and the five-clawed golden dragon was completely free. Roar! The five-clawed golden dragon raised its head proudly, and was in high spirits. Its whole body shone with a golden light as its dragon chi erupted. Bursts of thunderous explosions resounded in the air, as the dragon's roar resounded throughout the heavens and earth. Tang Zheng strolled out of the small room, and looked at the five-clawed golden dragon that was cruising in the narrow space. He nodded and said, "I have fulfilled my promise." The five-clawed golden dragon stared at Tang Zheng with his eyes wide open. Finally he nodded and said, "Thank you." Tang Zheng smiled faintly as his gaze fell on the chains on the ground. The 9 serenities mysterious iron is taken from the 9 serenities of the ghost world. It's a rare material for forging weapons and magic weapons. The five-clawed golden dragon saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and explained, "If that's the case, then keep it. Don't waste it. Maybe it'll be useful in the future." Tang Zheng waved his hand and kept the mysterious 9 serenities iron in his Sumeru world. Tang Zheng looked up at the space that was about to be completely destroyed and said, "Let's go." The five-clawed golden dragon looked around with a complicated expression. This was the damned place that he had been trapped in for hundreds of years. Finally, he was going to leave. Roar! The dragon roared loudly as the five-clawed golden dragon shook its head and wagged its tail. Boom! The space was destroyed. A man and a dragon soared into the sky from the black hole. The sand stopped spinning and everything seemed to be still. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 2 figures soared into the sky. The five-clawed golden dragon bloomed with golden light that could almost blind people under the sunlight. This scene was too shocking. As long as one saw it, they would never forget it for the rest of their life. A tremor from the soul spontaneously arose. Bang! 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 Many people's legs went soft as they knelt on the ground and prostrated themselves. Their mouths were muttering incantations. There was no lack of people who were bold before. Divine dragon, divine dragon. Originally, they vowed to catch the divine dragon. But when they saw it, they realized the gap between the 2 sides. Its divine might was not something they could resist at all. The fear that came from their souls seemed to be innate and embedded in their bones. Whoosh! The five-clawed golden dragon did not even look at them. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it soared into the sky. It circled in the air once, awe-inspiring. Dragon soars the 9 heavens. In the vast capital, Thousands of pairs of eyes witnessed this scene. The restless capital instantly quieted down, as if a spell had been cast on it. The traffic stopped, the pedestrians stopped walking, and even the water in the fountain seemed to have frozen. "Dragon!" someone shouted shakily. His voice was hoarse as if it was squeezed out from a crack in a stone. Then, exclamations rose one after another, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. "Dragon, divine dragon!" Bang! 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 The densely packed crowd knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the five-clawed golden dragon. Hua Xia was the descendant of the dragon. In myths and legends, the dragon had a status that other mythical beasts could not compare to. In the past, many people thought that this was just a legend and not to be believed. Now that they saw this scene with their own eyes, many people's worldview was turned upside down. So, dragons really existed. A miracle. There's someone on the dragon's head." An exclamation attracted everyone's attention. There was actually a person standing on the dragon's head. He was high and mighty, like a god overlooking all living things. Weren't dragons high and mighty, insufferably arrogant? How could they let someone stand on their head? This didn't make sense. Many people widened their eyes, wanting to see that person's appearance clearly, but they were too far away to see clearly. This enormous and ancient city completely erupted. Many people were shouting and yelling as they ran through the streets and alleys to spread the news. In an instant, the streets were emptied as everyone stared at the scene in the sky. Many people began to believe that there were gods in this world. Perhaps those miraculous myths and legends might not be unfounded, and might actually be true. Although the government had refuted the rumors many times, this scene in front of everyone's eyes was no longer something that could be erased by means of refuting rumors. After all, the eyes of the people could not be blinded forever. From this moment on, the world had undergone a subtle change, and so had the hearts of the people. Tang Zheng stood on the dragon's head, looking down at all the living things below. He did not have any thoughts of being superior. He knew that with the return of the demons, the worldview of the people in this world would be turned upside down. Since this could not be stopped, why not go with the flow and give them a heads up first? Otherwise, in the future, they would be even more afraid and the situation would be even worse. The bureau chief and Lu Wuxin heard the dragon's roar, and saw the other guards outside the door turn pale with fright as they stared at the sky, dumbfounded. They hurriedly rushed out and looked up, just in time to see the scene in the sky. The five-clawed golden dragon's body was so huge that it almost stretched across half the sky. In the capital, it could be seen clearly from any angle. Although they did not see the person on the dragon's head clearly, the bureau chief immediately called out his name. "Tang Zheng." "That person is Tang Zheng?" Lu Wuxin was surprised. The bureau chief nodded. "Other than him, it can't be anyone else." He knew very well that Tang Zheng had deliberately concealed the truth about the dragon. This time, other than Tang Zheng, who else had the ability to make the dragon appear? Immediately, the jealousy in his heart erupted like a volcano. He should be the one standing on the dragon's head. After all, he was the one with the highest authority in this world. That was his position. What qualifications did Tang Zheng have? Lu Wuxin's pupils constricted slightly, and he did not say a word. Yi Meiyu's eyes were also filled with shock, and she said in fear, "Senior, this." Although she was already a cultivator, she still felt a deep fear towards the dragon's might emitted by the five-clawed golden dragon, and even her words became hesitant. Lu Wuxin did not listen to Yi Meiyu's words. With a tap of his foot, he flew towards Tang Zheng. However, with a sudden flash of golden light, the five-clawed golden dragon and Tang Zheng disappeared together. A second ago, they were still in front of their eyes, but in the next second, only white clouds and bright sunlight remained in the sky. Ah! Many people's jaws almost fell to the ground. How did the divine dragon disappear? However, many people also reacted. As expected of the divine dragon, it possessed a supreme divine ability. Otherwise, how could it disappear so miraculously? Lu Wuxin stopped in her tracks and floated above the courtyard house. Her eyes searched everywhere, but she could not find any traces of the five-clawed golden dragon and Tang Zheng after a long time. She originally wanted to rush up and investigate. However, at this moment, after calming down, she felt a lingering fear. If she really rushed up and confronted the dragon head-on, what should she do? Was she a match for the dragon? If she was in her peak state back then, she would definitely not have this worry. However, at this moment, she had to consider this point. She struggled for a long time, but still did not get an answer. However, she immediately made another decision. To leave the capital. She regarded Tang Zheng as an enemy, and had almost killed his parents earlier, so she had formed a grudge with him. If she stayed in the capital, with her cultivation, she might not be able to obtain any benefits. Of the 36 stratagems, leaving was the best strategy. First, she would summon her old subordinates and carry out the long-planned plan. Only then would she not be afraid of Tang Zheng and the dragon. She had already made up her mind, and immediately landed back in the courtyard house. She looked deeply at the bureau chief and said, "We're leaving." With a flash of his figure, he walked out of the courtyard house with large strides. Yi Meiyu put away her thoughts and followed closely behind him. Looking at the backs of the two people leaving, the bureau chief looked at his fists. Crack, crack. His fists cracked as he ordered the guards on his left and right. Send someone to keep an eye on a few places in the information we collected. He understood that it was a fool's dream to send someone to follow Lu Wuxin. She wanted this information so much, so she would definitely do something. However, he could not guess her intentions for the time being. The only way was to wait for the rabbit to show up. He was very clear about the details of the information he gave the other party. As long as he sent someone to wait, he could figure out the other party's true intentions. He raised his head to look at the empty sky, his eyes flashing with a faint light as he said, "Wu Junshan and Lan Yu have encountered such a great calamity. Tang Zheng will definitely not let this matter rest. We cannot stay in this place any longer." He did not want to reveal that he was a cultivator for the time being. This was his trump card. In order to avoid being exposed, he could only not confront Tang Zheng directly. Chapter 1131. High up in the sky, Tang Zheng saw the reactions of the masses. However, he wasn't showing off, so he didn't want to cause too much fear. "Let's go." As soon as he gave the order, the 5-clawed golden dragon flashed with a golden light, and the man and dragon disappeared from the sky. In the next second, he appeared in a small alley in the capital. He was so fast that even Lu Wuxin, who had soared into the sky, did not notice anything. This was the 5-clawed golden dragon's ability. Once it was free, the power it displayed was beyond Tang Zheng's imagination. Not only did the formation of the imperial city restrict its freedom, but it also suppressed its divine abilities by quite a bit. In the small alley, there were few people and it was quiet. A commotion could be heard from afar. Obviously, the disappearance of the dragon god had caused a commotion among the people. Tang Zheng looked down and saw the 5-clawed golden dragon wrapped around his arm. However, this dragon was very small, like a small snake. The 5-clawed golden dragon could change its size and appearance. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised, but he still frowned and said, "Although you've shrunk, I'm afraid others will be frightened if they see you like this." The 5-clawed golden dragon rolled its eyes helplessly. Its eyes were full of light as it muttered, "Humans are so troublesome." Seeing Tang Zheng's frown deepen, it quickly added, "I wasn't talking about you." Whoosh! The 5-clawed golden dragon disappeared in a flash of golden light. In the next second, a vivid tattoo appeared on Tang Zheng's arm. It was a vivid and lifelike 5-clawed golden dragon. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with surprise. "You actually have this ability. This way, the 5-clawed golden dragon wouldn't scare others." "Of course, I'm very capable." The 5-clawed golden dragon's voice sounded in Tang Zheng's mind. Telepathy. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised. Although the 5-clawed golden dragon was attached to his arm, it didn't know that the inner demons lived in his body like Qiyu. Ever since the inner demons returned from the island nation, they had become very quiet. Qiyu had left Tang Zheng's body, but the inner demons had failed to do so. Now he seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. Hearing the 5-clawed golden dragon's voice, the inner demons said faintly, "What's there to be proud of? Who are you?" The 5-clawed golden dragon was shocked and quickly asked. It did not know about the existence of Qiyu and the inner demons. Who I am has nothing to do with you." The inner demons snapped. "That's enough." Tang Jing didn't want the two of them to quarrel again, so he quickly stopped them. Five-clawed golden dragon, since you heard the voice of the inner demons, then let me tell you, there is another soul living in my body, the inner demons. Who are the inner demons? The five-clawed golden dragon was confused. What qualifications does he have to criticize me like this? And who am I? When I was in my prime, you little dragon, had not yet been born. The inner demons said disdainfully. Arrogant. The five-clawed golden dragon flew into a rage. Both of you talk less. Tang Zheng reprimanded. One person and one dragon were intimidated by Tang Zheng's pressure, and did not dare to be noisy. Tang Zheng took large strides out of the small alley, and arrived at the main street. He saw that everyone was whispering to each other, and discussing spiritedly. From time to time, they would look towards the sky as if they wanted to see if the Divine Dragon Society would appear. Tang Zheng understood that his good intentions had worked, and this would definitely cause an earth-shattering change in people's views. When he returned to his house, everyone was standing in the yard, not looking at the sky. Although they knew about the five-clawed golden dragon, they were still deeply shocked when they saw the scene in the sky with their own eyes. Of course, they knew who was standing on the dragon's head and couldn't help but feel honored. Lan Yu was also standing in the crowd. She had just returned when she saw the scene in the sky. She didn't have time to tell everyone that she was ambushed before she was interrupted by this incident. When Tang Zheng leisurely strolled back, it was as if she had just awoken from a dream. She madly rushed towards Tang Zheng, grabbed his hand, and impatiently said, "Little Zheng, quickly save your father." Tang Zheng was suddenly startled. He subconsciously held her hand and anxiously asked, "What happened to him?" His heart trembled. He actually had a feeling of worry. "I went with him to see the leader to seek justice for you. I didn't expect to meet Lu Wuxin. Your father and Shadow stopped her in order to save people. Lu Wuxin is very powerful, so they must be in danger now. Quickly save them," Lan Yu said anxiously. When the others heard this, they were also shocked and gathered around. Tang Zheng originally thought that he didn't have much feelings for his parents, but when he suddenly heard that Wu Junshan was trapped, his natural reaction shocked him. Unknowingly, he also began to worry about these two people. Even he didn't notice this before. He didn't have time to carefully analyze his thoughts and hurriedly said, "I'll go now." At the same time, he was also very surprised. Why would Lu Wuxin be in the leader's residence? Could it be that during Lu Wuxin's disappearance, she had already colluded with the leader? What was she trying to do? He shook his head and temporarily didn't think about the reason. He turned and left. "I'll go with you." Lan Yu immediately chased after him. She had no other choice but to leave her husband first. This time, with her son's help, she was determined to return and lend her husband a hand. When the others saw this, they also chased after him and said in unison, "We'll go help you together." So, suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. It was as fast as lightning, arriving in the blink of an eye. However, his footsteps were swaying and his body was weak. His body was covered in blood and his face was pale. He clenched his teeth and couldn't hide his sorry appearance. After taking a closer look, Tang Zheng recognized him and subconsciously exclaimed, "You're back?" The others were also stunned and looked at him with incomparable surprise. This was poles apart from his usual appearance, as if he was a completely different person. It was hard to imagine what he had experienced. Wu Junshan ran all the way, even ignoring the strange phenomenon in the sky. When he finally reached the door of his house, he saw the familiar figure. His vision turned black, and he weakly fell to the ground. Tang Zheng was shocked. He stepped forward bravely and hugged him, shouting, "Wake up!" Seeing that he didn't respond at all, he immediately put his hand on his wrist and injected a trace of true qi into his body. He felt that his qi was weak and his vitality was exhausted. He had lost a lot of blood and was on the verge of death. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. This injury was not a normal kind of injury. It was hard to imagine what he had experienced for him to be reduced to such a state with his cultivation. Tang Zheng's face immediately became gloomy like 10,000-year-old ice, saying, "Don't worry, I definitely won't let you die." At this moment, seeing Wu Junshan injured with his own eyes, He finally understood that Wu Junshan had imperceptibly left a deep shadow in his heart. The word family seemed simple. Normally, he wouldn't even think about it. But after all, blood was thicker than water. Since the two sides met again, Wu Junshan's actions were indeed compensation, trying to restore the father and son relationship. Little Zheng, you have to save him, Lan Yu impatiently said. Tang Zheng slightly nodded. Without saying a word, he hugged Wu Junshan and walked home. Where's the shadow? Lan Yu suddenly asked. Looking around, she couldn't find any trace of the shadow. Wu Junshan was already unconscious and couldn't speak. Of course, he couldn't tell her the answer. The shadow is very powerful and has a way to hide its whereabouts. It must be hiding again. Lan Yu found an answer for herself. But she already had an ominous premonition in her heart. She just didn't dare to think too much about it. You've gone too far. You dare to hurt our people. You guys go back first. I'll go meet Lu Wuxin. Tian Chanzi was skilled and bold. He was provoked by Wu Junshan's miserable appearance and turned to leave. Be careful, Tang Zheng warned. He had fought with Tian Chanzi before and knew her strength. So he wasn't worried about Tian Chanzi. The group of people returned to the villa. Tang Dahai saw Wu Junshan covered in blood and jumped up from the sofa in fright. In this period of time, his relationship with Wu Junshan and his wife grew day by day. He had already forgiven Tang Zheng's biological parents and got along well with them. Little Zheng, what's wrong? Tang Dahai anxiously asked. Grandfather, don't worry. I will save him. Tang Zheng entered a room and laid Wu Junshan on the bed. Blood immediately dyed the bedsheets red. Junshan, wake up. Lan Yu was like a pear blossom in the rain, sobbing as she called out. Wu Junshan stood to the side. His eyes were already wet. He begged. Tang Zheng, you must save master. Tang Zheng nodded. He looked at everyone and said, you guys go out first. I will heal him. Oh, okay. You heal him first. If you need anything, we will be outside. Lan Yu wiped her eyes. The back of her hand was wet from tears. She suppressed her mixed feelings and said, do you need my help? Empyrean Fairy asked. Tang Zheng slightly shook his head. I have a way. Everyone left the room. Only Tang Zheng and Wu Junshan remained. Wu Junshan's face was pale. If it weren't for his extraordinary perseverance, an ordinary person would have died on the way. He secretly sighed in his heart. Looking at his stiff cheeks, it was not hard to imagine his all-powerful appearance in the past. Tang Zheng hurriedly gathered his thoughts and helped him up. He placed his palms on his back. A ball of true qi rushed into his body from his back and wrapped around his heart. Originally, his heartbeat had almost stopped. However, after being stimulated by the true qi, it began to beat vigorously. It was as if a sleeping person was suddenly awakened. He immediately regained his vitality. Thump thump. His heartbeat became stronger and stronger. His life force recovered a little. However, the situation was still not optimistic. At the same time, Wu Junshan's inner strength seemed to have been awakened. It strongly rejected Tang Zheng's true qi. The two forces fought in his meridians. Ah! Wu Junshan let out a blood-curdling scream and actually woke up. When he opened his eyes and saw Tang Zheng, his eyes flashed with a bright light as he said, I was useless. I couldn't get justice for you. P.S. I was delayed 2 days ago and did not update. Sorry, I will update now. Chapter 1132. Tang Zheng hurriedly supported Wu Junshan and said, don't speak, calm your mind. I'll heal you. Chapter 1133. Tang Zheng was surprised to see the changes in Xiao Tian's body. He asked, your power has changed a lot. Chapter 1134. He made a solemn vow and looked like he would never compromise. Tang Zheng tried his best to persuade him. This time it was different from the past. He tried to bring as few people as possible. Chapter 1138. Looking at the slowly rising souls of the golden crows, Tang Zheng asked thoughtfully, do you mean that they want to revive the souls of the golden crows? It's not impossible. You should know that the golden crow is extremely powerful and extraordinary. Moreover, it's said that it has great significance to the Yellow Emperor's tribe. The inner demons said in a deep voice. What significance? The golden crow is a divine bird that the Yellow Emperor has raised since he was young. The Yellow Emperor and the Yellow Emperor's heart are connected. Back then, the golden crow played a big part in the Yellow Emperor's reign. The inner demons continued to talk about the secrets of the ancient times. In addition, it's said that the 9 golden crows almost died when they were young. It was the Yellow Emperor who didn't hesitate to use his own soul to feed the golden crow. In the end, he raised the 9 golden crows and turned them into divine birds. Using souls to feed the golden crow? Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. He had never heard of such a thing before. The inner demons didn't find it strange at all and said casually, "In the ancient times, there are many things that you can't imagine. Many spells have disappeared in the long river of history, so there's no need to make a fuss about it." Tang Zheng nodded and said, "The Yellow Emperor used his soul to feed the golden crow. In other words, one of the 9 golden crow souls is the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor?" Tang Zheng still remembered the time when the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul controlled Tian Chanzi. The strength that Tian Chanzi exploded with was something that even the 100 Faces Star Lord, who was stronger than Tian Chanzi, couldn't do anything about. The inner demons said, "You've hit the nail on the head. These golden crow souls contain the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. If there's a way to gather these golden crow souls, do you think the Yellow Emperor will be reborn?" Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. Of course, he didn't know the correct answer, but he had a premonition that the Yellow Emperor would be reborn in this way, just as the inner demons had said. Both the Yellow Emperor and Qiyu had been reborn. Wouldn't these 2 archenemies be fighting each other until the heavens and earth were turned upside down? That would be a catastrophe. The soul of the golden crow will ascend to the heavens, and the 9 suns will shine in the sky. You won't be able to stop it. The inner demons vowed. Is there really no other way? Isn't Qiyu your enemy? If the Yellow Emperor is reborn, wouldn't that give Qiyu an equal opponent? Isn't that what you want? The inner demons asked. Tang Zheng was stunned. That's right, wasn't this his original goal? Now that things had come to this, could it be that he was going back on his word? His shining soul of the golden crow was rising. There were already 4 suns in the sky. Originally, because the mountain peak was covered in snow all year round, it was unbearably cold, but now it was scorching hot. The pure white snow on the mountain peak was gradually melting, turning into streams that flowed down the mountain. This can't go on like this, right? Tang Zheng asked. The inner demons were silent. The 5-clawed golden dragon said indignantly, "The golden crow is nothing. Let me go and meet it." Tang Zheng's arm flashed with a golden light. The 5-clawed golden dragon was eager to give it a try. It obviously wanted to compete with the soul of the golden crow. Wait a minute. Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped it. The inner demons were right. Since Qiyu couldn't be controlled and had colluded with the summoned demons, he must be plotting something big. He didn't have any way to stop him at the moment. If the Yellow Emperor was reborn, it might be an unexpected countermeasure. At the very least, the Yellow Emperor was the ancestor of the current Huaxia people. He would lead his former subordinates to resist Qiyu. Although a great war would break out, at least most people would be saved and the world would be saved. Thinking of this, Tang Zheng decided that he didn't want to stop the soul of the golden crow. Boom! A loud sound came from a mountain peak. The soul of the golden crow that was rising into the sky suddenly exploded with a dazzling light. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked into the distance and faintly saw a fierce battle erupting on the mountain peak. Damn, it's the Empyrean Fairy and the others. Although it was difficult, Tang Zheng immediately made a judgment. With such a big movement, the others were completely awakened and knew that the enemy was attacking. Suddenly, the shadows of the hands on the top of the mountain churned, and a mysterious force rose into the sky. The remaining souls of the golden crow rose into the sky at a much faster speed. Tang Zheng didn't care about these people. He was afraid that something would happen to the Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian. So he flew to the mountain peak on his sword. On the top of the mountain, several people were fighting fiercely. The Empyrean Fairy was obviously more skilled, and was fiercely suppressing the other party. Just now, the soul of the golden crow was attacked by the Empyrean Fairy. It was still struggling in the air to resist the power of the Empyrean fairy's attack. Li Xiaotian was not idle either. Although the cultivation of the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm was not enough for him to be like a fish in water, he had the strength to protect himself for the time being. Who are you? How dare you stop us? Do you know who we are? Someone roared aggressively. The Empyrean fairy snorted and said, "How can I turn a blind eye to what you're doing? Do you know what we're doing? No matter what you're doing, the 9 suns you've summoned will definitely turn the earth into a scorched earth. Thousands of creatures will die because of you. No matter what your purpose is, I will never sit by and watch such a cruel act," the Empyrean fairy said firmly. "In order to resurrect the Yellow Emperor, what's this sacrifice? Resurrect the Yellow Emperor?" The Empyrean fairy raised her eyebrows in surprise. Obviously, she didn't know the secret. "Why are you scared? Then quickly retreat," the other party said proudly. The Empyrean fairy's face darkened without hesitation and said, "So what if he's the Yellow Emperor? It's rumored that he's a wise emperor. If he knew that you're resurrecting him at such a high price, what would he think?" "It's not up to you to tell us what to do." The other party's face darkened. There was some worry between his eyebrows, but he said sternly, "Whoosh!" A figure fell from the sky. Everyone couldn't help but turn their heads to look. "Tangzheng!" Li Xiaotian shouted in surprise. The Empyrean fairy's eyes showed deep worry. She said to Tangzheng, "Do you know what they're doing?" "Maybe they want to resurrect the Yellow Emperor," Tangzheng said. "What, you already know?" The Empyrean fairy was shocked. Even the others were curious. They didn't know how this guy who suddenly appeared knew such a secret. Their methods are too cruel. They actually want to pay such a huge price to achieve this. The Empyrean fairy said hatefully. "What price?" Tangzheng was at a loss. The Empyrean fairy pointed to the soul of the golden crow in the sky and said, 10 suns in the sky. The world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Many lives will die in this scorching heat, don't you know? Is that so? Tangzheng was shocked, because he did not think of this. Don't you have the shooting sun arrows and heaven-shocking bow? Have you forgotten what these 2 divine weapons were used for? The Empyrean fairy asked. Tangzheng was startled. With a flash of inspiration, he immediately remembered the use of these 2 divine weapons. This was the divine weapon that Hou Yi used to shoot down the sun. Wasn't it used to shoot down the extra sun? How did the golden crow die? Could it be that he died at the hands of Hou Yi, under the shooting sun arrows? Heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrows. How did you get these 2 divine weapons? When the other party heard these words, he turned pale with fright. The illustrious reputation of these 2 divine weapons was like thunder to them. These 2 divine weapons were not forged by Hou Yi, but had existed since ancient times. It was unknown which almighty expert had forged these divine weapons. If it wasn't for the 2 divine weapons fusing into one, it wouldn't have been able to threaten the existence of the golden crow. However, the power of these 2 divine weapons was not something that ordinary people could unleash. For a long time no one could pull open the heaven-shocking bow and shoot out the shooting sun arrows. In ancient times, many golden crow died under these 2 divine weapons. Later on, the divine weapons fell into the hands of the Yellow Emperor, and all the golden crow in the world were exterminated, leaving only 9 golden crow chicks. The Yellow Emperor adopted the golden crow chicks and sealed the divine weapons. From then on, the divine weapons were covered in dust, and many people even forgot about its existence. Until 10,000 years later, the world had already undergone a huge change. The Yellow Emperor was no longer in this world, but the 9 golden crows were still alive. For some unknown reason, the golden crows went crazy and rose into the 9 heavens, turning into 9 suns. 10 suns hung in the sky, causing the common people to suffer unspeakably. At this time, Hou Yi had gone through a lot of hardships, and finally found the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. He drew his bow and shot the 9 golden crow, saving the people, and was praised by the world. Although the golden crow was dead, the soul of the golden crow was not extinguished. It landed on the 9 mountain peaks at the top of the world. This matter was a secret. It was unknown how this group of people found out about this news, and then summoned the soul of the golden crow, causing the scene of the 10 suns shining in the sky to appear in the world. Is there anything strange about me having these two divine weapons? Tang Zheng asked. The other party's expression kept changing as he sized up Tang Zheng, as if he wanted to see through him. Suddenly, the other party's eyes lit up, and he screamed in shock. Skywalker, you're actually a Skywalker. This group of old subordinates of Chi were extremely familiar with Skywalkers. Back then, Chi was a Skywalker, which was why he had the strength to fight against the Yellow Emperor. They had a natural rejection and hostility toward Skywalkers. Just a single celestial, their enmity instantly soared. They stared at Tang Zheng, their killing intent surging. You are a Skywalker. It is not surprising that you can pull the heaven-shocking bow and shoot the shooting sun arrows. These two divine weapons belong to the Yellow Emperor. How can they fall into the hands of a Skywalker like you? The other party said aggressively. Tang Zheng frowned and said, Why can't it fall into my hands? You speak as if I have disgraced it. You are disgracing it. Are you worthy of possessing the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows? Hurry up and hand over these two divine weapons, or else you won't be able to leave this mountain today. The other party said solemnly. Tang Zheng laughed disdainfully. What qualifications do you have to say such words? It seems that we have the advantage right now. Although you talk a lot, your strength is obviously not as good as your words. Haha, do you think we only have this few people? The other party did not think so. He was not afraid at all. Instead, he laughed wildly. His gaze was like that of a little sheep. Tang Zheng did not like this kind of unbridled gaze. Originally, he was prepared to ignore the other party, but since this matter involved the people of the world, he could not sit idly by. Chapter 1139. The other party let out a long roar towards the sky. The roar shook the heavens and spread far and wide. Immediately, roars came from the other mountains in response. In that moment, the roar reverberated like thunder in one's ears. Crap, he's calling for help. The Empyrean fairy immediately saw through the other party's intentions and prepared to attack again. At this time, the 8 golden crow souls had all risen to the 9 heavens and turned into suns, releasing blazing light. Only the soul of the golden crow that was being attacked by the Empyrean fairy was still struggling in midair, unable to move forward. The 9 suns were shining brightly in the sky, and the heat was unbearable. The ground seemed to be about to melt. The snow on the mountain melted at a speed that was flying to one side. With a rumble, an avalanche actually occurred, causing the mountain to shake and the earth to shake. The trees at the foot of the mountain quickly withered and spontaneously combusted with a boom, turning into charcoal. The heavy people on the mountain peak were the ones closest to the 9 suns. In an instant, they felt as if their water had evaporated and their entire bodies were on fire. Tang Zheng was shocked by this scene. Although he had felt the heat just now, but now, it was not just a little heat, but a life-threatening situation. He suddenly raised his head and stared at the 9 suns. The glaring light made it hard for him to open his eyes. The Empyrean fairy's face darkened and urged loudly. Tang Zheng, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and stop them, otherwise this world will be over. Tang Zheng also realized that the situation was worse than he had imagined, and immediately took out the heaven-shocking bow and sun-shooting arrow. When he saw that he had successfully knocked the arrow, the other party was obviously shocked and shouted, Stop him! So. The few of them abandoned the Empyrean fairy and Li Xiaotian and attacked Tang Zheng at the same time. At the same time, on the vast land of Huaxia, everyone raised their heads and looked at the scene in the sky in disbelief. When the 9 suns appeared in the sky, many people subconsciously thought that they were seeing things, but when they saw the same reaction as them, they understood that they were not seeing things. Before they could understand what was going on, an intense heat descended from the sky and sprinkled on the vast earth. Everyone immediately felt uncomfortable. Although the 9 suns were tens of thousands of meters in the sky and were very far away, the scorching heat was still very uncomfortable after traveling for tens of thousands of meters. Although it was not as bad as the scene on Mount Everest, many people still felt a strong burning sensation on their bodies. Quickly go into the house and hide. Some smart people immediately realized what was going on and rushed to the shade, shouting and making a fuss. In an instant, the streets and alleys were in an uproar. Everyone screamed and rushed to the shade, casting glances at the sky from time to time. Those 9 suns were exceptionally dazzling. They emitted a bewitching radiance that made people tremble in fear. What's going on? This question appeared in everyone's mind, but no one knew the answer. Compared to the other countries, Huaxia was the one who felt it the most. This was because these suns rose from their sky. The country was also panicking and did not know what to do. This phenomenon had only been recorded in a few words in myths and legends. Everyone treated it as nonsense after dinner. No one believed it at all. A few days ago, the divine dragon had appeared, and now there were 9 suns in the sky. Could it be that the end of the world was coming? Although there were a lot of messy guesses, no one knew what to do. Boom. Suddenly, a house was on fire. The strong sunlight caused some flammable materials to react naturally, and the fire spread rapidly. The fire alarm immediately rang through the streets and alleys. No city in Huaxia could be spared. Even the water in the rivers was evaporating at a speed visible to the naked eye, reducing bit by bit. Tangzheng did not know about the disaster facing thousands of worlds, because the enemy's attack had arrived as scheduled. The joint attack of several people could not be underestimated. However, Tangzheng did not retreat. He still pulled the bow into a full moon shape and loosened his fingers. Wang. The bowstring trembled violently. The sun-shooting arrow turned into a ray of light and shot out with a whoosh. It tore through the air with a terrifying force and arrived in the sky in the blink of an eye in front of a golden crow's soul. No! Someone shouted hysterically, trying to stop all of this, but their speed was not as fast as the sun-shooting arrow. Of course, once they realized that they could not stop the sun-shooting arrow, they poured their anger onto Tangzheng. They looked at him as if they wanted to skin him alive. Kill. A few attacks were about to hit Tangzheng. All of his attention was focused on the shooting sun arrows and heaven-shocking bow. He had no time to retaliate. However, he was not worried, because with the Empyrean fairy here, it was impossible for him to sit back and do nothing. His guess was accurate. When the enemy attacked, she also moved at the same time. Mountain River Map. A painting scroll flew out from her hand and floated above everyone's heads. The painting scroll slowly unfolded, and the endless mountain river pattern was vividly displayed in front of everyone. These people's target was Tangzheng. Even if the mountain river map was already above their heads, they did not take it seriously. Tangzheng was the main point. Whoosh! A gust of wind flew out from the mountain river map. Like a whirlwind, it immediately swept up 2 people. Ah! They immediately realized that something was wrong and let out heart-wrenching screams. However, it was too late. The 2 of them were thrown down the cliff with a whoosh, and were ruthlessly thrown down the cliff. Just as a long sword was about to pierce Tangzheng's chest, a huge rock fell from the sky and landed on the long sword. Kacha! The long sword broke into pieces. All of the attacks collapsed in an instant and disappeared into thin air. Tangzheng was safe and sound. He stared at the sun-shooting arrow that broke through the sky. Boom! With a loud sound, the sun-shooting arrow hit the soul of the golden crow. A violent explosion occurred and turned into a few sparks. Look! At the same time, the people in Huaxia saw this scene. In the sky, one of the suns had actually exploded. For ordinary people, the distance was too far. They could not see the sun-shooting arrow at all. They could only see one of the suns exploding into a ball of fire. When the soul of the golden crow was hit, the effect was immediate. The unbearable heat wave immediately reduced by a few degrees. Everyone instantly understood that there was hope. As long as the suns exploded, they could be saved and return to their old days. At this moment, everyone understood that the appearance of so many suns in the sky was not a good thing. It was a sign of doomsday. Many people almost gave up hope. Now that there was a turning point, and there was a turning point, everyone's hope was ignited. Their eyes were gradually filled with joy. However, many people had the same question in their minds at the same time. What was going on? The suns exploded when they came out? What exactly happened in the process? In the island nation thousands of miles away, Saint King looked in the direction of Huaxia absent-mindedly. The miracle of the 9 suns illuminating the sky also entered his eyes. He could not help but turn pale. He was a demon expert, so of course he had heard of the legend of Hou shooting down the suns in ancient times. Naturally, he thought of this point. Could it be that the golden crow is not dead and has come out again? Saint King muttered to himself. Beside him, a treasure box flickered with a mysterious light. Chiyu's voice sounded. This is not the golden crow but the soul of the golden crow. In this world, only the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow can deal with the soul of the golden crow. These two divine weapons are in Tang Zheng's hands, so it must be this brat who is shooting arrows to attack the soul of the golden crow. Chiyu analyzed incessantly. Saint King was puzzled and said, "Isn't Tang Zheng our enemy? Why would he shoot the soul of the golden crow? This is not in his interest, right? Do you know what the appearance of the soul of the golden crow means?" Chiyu asked. Saint King shook his head blankly. Once the soul of the golden crow is out of control, 10 suns illuminating the sky, then this world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Although Tang Zheng's ability is not very great, he has the heart of a savior. He will not watch this world be destroyed, or rather, most people die an unnatural death without doing anything. Do you understand? Chiyu asked. Saint King seemed to be deep in thought. In the end, he shook his head and said, "I still can't understand Tang Zheng's actions. Isn't he offending both sides? Not only did he offend us, he also offended the Yellow Emperor's people. In the future, if both sides don't like each other, no matter who wins or loses, his life will not be easy." Chiyu sneered and said, "This is the difference between you and him. I have been with him day and night for such a long time, but I don't dare to say that I completely understand his thoughts. Sometimes he is like a fool, willing to sacrifice everything to save others. Sometimes he will weigh the pros and cons and avoid the cons. In short, he is a very contradictory person, or you can say that he is an indecisive and soft-hearted person. To achieve great things, being indecisive and soft-hearted is a great taboo. How can he compare to you, ancestor?" Saint King said flatteringly. Of course, this was also his heartfelt words. Although Tang Zheng and Chiyu were both Skywalkers with the 9 Saint body, it was obvious that Saint King did not think highly of Tang Zheng. The demon race liked people who were decisive in killing. They would not hesitate to sacrifice some for their goals. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates have already made their move. The Golden Crow's soul. Humph, what a good plan. Back then, the Yellow Emperor used his soul to feed the Golden Crow. It was an unintentional act. I'm afraid he never dreamed that he would need to rely on the Golden Crow to revive himself. Chiyu sneered. He was the person involved, so of course he knew the relationship between the Golden Crow and Chiyu. As for the reason why the Golden Crow's soul appeared, he could guess it without thinking. It was none other than the Emperor's former subordinates wanting to use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in the Golden Crow's soul to condense and be reborn. However, in order to condense the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, they had to summon the 9 Golden Crow's souls, and extract the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul from them to condense into a whole. Chiyu knew better than anyone what this meant. Although he did not experience the history of Hou shooting down the suns, he had seen the Golden Crow long ago. He deeply understood the power of the Golden Crow. Chapter 1140. Chiyu pondered for a long time before saying disdainfully, "It's not that easy for the Yellow Emperor to be reborn. There's no need for us to panic because of them. Our top priority is to find a body for me so that I can possess it and be reborn. As long as I am alive, even if the Yellow Emperor is reborn, what is there to be afraid of?" Saint King understood and hurriedly nodded, saying excitedly, "Ancestor's words are reasonable. Ancestor, don't worry, we have already sent out countless people to search for a suitable body. There will definitely be a result soon." At the peak of the snow mountain, a lot of the snow had already melted, revealing the bare cliff. It was like a young girl who had been stripped of her clothes, delicate and pitiful. Everyone had witnessed the power of the sun-shooting arrow with their own eyes. High up in the sky, the sun-shooting arrow struck the Golden Crow's soul. With a boom, the Golden Crow's soul shattered into pieces, turning into flames that filled the sky and scattered in all directions. This scene was truly shocking. The sound of the explosion was like a clap of thunder that landed in their hearts, causing their internal organs to tremble. Many people subconsciously froze as they stared straight at the sky. The scattered souls of the golden crow were not completely annihilated. Instead, they were dancing and circling in the sky. Many of these people had never seen the power of the sun-shooting arrow with their own eyes. Now that they had seen it with their own eyes, they finally understood how terrifying it was. Ayo! A sharp howl pierced through the sky. The anger within caused the air to surge, as if it was about to pierce through the heavens. Following that, screams rose and fell one after another, causing one's heart to tremble in fear. Hee, are you angry just like that? I only managed to hit one golden crow's soul. Empyrean Fairy sneered. She did not put the anger of these people in her eyes at all. Instead, she felt that it was to her heart's content. Tangjung, don't stop. Continue shooting down the other golden crow's souls. Hearing Empyrean Fairy's urging, Tangjung did not delay any longer. Taking advantage of the moment when the enemy was distracted, he once again pulled open the heaven-shocking bow. The sun-shooting arrow had already returned to his hand, and was firmly placed on the sun-shooting arrow. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow once again pierced through the sky. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was rending. A long scar appeared in the sky as if a huge space was being torn apart. It was ferocious and terrifying. Boom! Another golden crow soul was struck by the arrow again, and it turned into flames that filled the sky. The soul of the golden crow was a living target. It floated in the sky and looked majestic, but there was no way it could avoid the attack of the shooting sun arrows. Many heart-wrenching screams rang out and many figures arrived on time. In an instant, they arrived at the mountain peak where Tangjung and the others were at. Who are you? When they saw the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows in Tangjung's hands, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out as they asked hysterically. Tangjung's expression didn't change. He didn't answer at all and immediately shot the third arrow. The shooting sun arrows whistled through the air. Some people did not want to be outdone. They leaped up and directly blocked the shooting sun arrows. The magic treasures in their hands bloomed with dazzling light. Boom! This person was like a kite with a broken string. He flew out and smashed into the snowy mountain far away, creating a huge crater and causing an even bigger avalanche. When the others saw this scene, they were shocked by the power of the shooting sun arrows and remained silent for a long time. But in the next second, someone let out a surprised cry. Under everyone's watchful eyes, that person actually flew out of the huge crater. His entire body was covered in blood, but his life was not in danger. Everyone revealed an expression of disbelief. In their subconscious, the shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow were peerless divine weapons. Even the golden crow was not its match, so how could a normal person survive under the shooting sun arrows? But now, it seemed that this was not the case. It was true that the shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow were extremely powerful, but they were far from being as powerful as they had imagined. There was a way. This thought surfaced in many people's minds. Although the soul of the golden crow was shot, it was not completely annihilated. It could completely reform and complete its goal. It was impossible for the shooting sun arrows to completely stop them. Stop him! Someone shouted, and rushed towards Tangjung at the same time. Surrounded by enemies, Tangjung remained unmoved, and once again pulled open the heaven-shocking bow. The arrow just now did not hit the soul of the golden crow, so this arrow was bound to hit it. The shooting sun arrows whistled through the air once again. Some people tried to stop them, but the Empyrean Fairy was one step ahead of them and blocked their path. She had obviously understood the enemy's intentions, so she definitely could not let the enemy succeed and intercept the shooting sun arrows. The Fairy of the Nine Heavens pointed her finger, and a water dragon flew out from the mountain and river map of the gods of Earth and Vale. With a swing of its tail, it hit one of the men. With a loud bang, the man was smashed into a mountain and no longer made any sound. Although the shooting sun arrows were not enough to kill in one shot, the Empyrean Fairy's ultimate kill was extremely easy. Stop this woman! A few people disregarded their own safety and blocked in front of the Empyrean Fairy, trying to separate her and Tangjung, so that she would be too busy to take care of Tangjung. This method was indeed effective. When he shot the third soul of the golden crow, The enemy's attack arrived as expected, but he had no way of blocking it. He could only watch as the attack arrived in front of him. Break! With a delicate shout, Li Xiaotian's moving figure blocked in front of him. A bow and arrow appeared in her hand, and she shot an arrow, repelling the enemy. She was an 8th level grandmaster, and even among these people, she was not an ordinary person. Tang Zheng looked at her gratefully. She looked back and smiled, her charm boundless, and said resolutely, "With me here, you don't have to worry, unless they step over me. Be careful." Tang Zheng nodded heavily, and shot another arrow without any hesitation, aiming at the 4th soul of the Golden Crow. "Stop him, we can't let him continue." Seeing that they did not succeed in stopping Tang Zheng, these people were furious. So many people, but they could not do anything to the 3 of them. This was simply a great shame. Everyone used all their skills and cast spells again, trying to kill the 3 of them. These people's cultivation was not weak. Most of them were in the Golden Core and Yuanying realms. If they were in the secular world, they would definitely be first-class masters. It was a pity that they were facing top masters like the Empyrean Fairy and Tang Zheng. Even if the other party had a large number of people, they could not take the initiative for a while. "Get out of the way, I'll take care of them." Suddenly, a person flew out from behind the crowd. When his feet landed on the ground, it was as if he had stepped on a mountain peak with a great force. The ground shook violently a few times before it stopped. The crowd automatically made a path for this person to pass through. He was not tall, but he was handsome. He was a standard young man, enough to make many young girls scream in love. "Who exactly are you people? Why do you want to stop the soul of the Golden Crow?" he asked with a livid face. His voice was like that of an announcer, articulating perfectly. In fact, before he was possessed, he was indeed a host of a small television station. However, now he had changed completely. He had become a general under the Yellow Emperor in the ancient times. His name was Emosia. Emosia's cultivation was obviously higher than the other former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. He was in the divine transformation realm. Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed slightly. He stared straight at the other party. He also realized that the other party's cultivation was not ordinary. He said, "Who are you? Why do you insist on summoning the soul of the Golden Crow?" "My name is Emosia." "Emosia." Tang Zheng frowned. He had never heard of this name. The inner demon said lazily, "In the ancient times, the Yellow Emperor had 2 generals, 1 male and 1 female. You have already seen the female general. She is Lu Wuxin. Now that you have seen the male general, your luck is not bad." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. He did not know if he should say that he was lucky or unlucky. He had encountered both of the Yellow Emperor's generals. Dealing with Lu Wuxin alone was not easy. Now that Emosia was involved, it was undoubtedly going to be even more difficult. "So you are Emosia. In the stories passed down from the ancient times, your name resounded like thunder. Legend has it that you are very benevolent. Why are you being so cruel this time?" The Empyrean Fairy asked in disbelief. She had also heard of Emosia's story. Emosia was a master swordsman of his generation. His swordsmanship had reached the peak of perfection. It was said that when it came to swordsmanship, no one could surpass him. Even the Yellow Emperor's swordsmanship was slightly inferior to his. The reason why his name was immortalized was not because of his swordsmanship, but because of his benevolence. After the Battle of Zhuolu, many of the Yellow Emperor's subordinates advocated for the extermination of the entire Jiuli tribe. Emosia, however, strongly advised the Yellow Emperor not to exterminate the entire Jiuli tribe. Only then could the Jiuli tribe be preserved. The Empyrean Fairy found it hard to imagine that Emosia would risk universal condemnation and sacrifice so many lives to summon the soul of the Golden Crow. Emosia's face flashed with hesitation and struggle. He remained silent for a long time, his expression fluctuating. Finally, he clenched his teeth and said, "There are many things that are beyond one's control. Moreover, in order to revive the Yellow Emperor, necessary sacrifices are unavoidable." The Empyrean Fairy shook her head in disappointment. "The rumors are indeed not trustworthy. Those praises should not have landed on you at all. That is a stain on your good name." Emosia's expression became more and more conflicted. In the end he said with a long sigh, "Why are you stopping us? The current Huaxia people were founded by the Yellow Emperor. If the Yellow Emperor is reborn, he will lead this people to rise again. Don't you know how great and glorious this is? Haha, ridiculous. What's the point of exchanging countless lives for prosperity? I would rather choose to live a peaceful life than to enjoy the prosperity exchanged with blood and lives," the Empyrean fairy said firmly. Emosia's face flashed with embarrassment. He said resentfully, "Who is right and who is wrong is not something that you can decide with just a few words. However, since you have chosen to oppose us, then you are our enemies. Don't blame us for being merciless. No one needs you to show mercy," the Empyrean fairy said without any trace of politeness. Tangjung also nodded in agreement. "That makes sense. You don't care about the people of the world, so how can we respect you? Then there's nothing more to say." Emosia's expression became fierce as his aura soared into the sky. Chapter 1141. When Moi heard Tang Zheng's words, he no longer had any misgivings. His aura changed greatly as he took a step forward. This was a sharp sword chi. Pinnacle novel. Pa pa pa. The exposed rocks around his feet all exploded, turning into piles of gravel, and then into fine powder. The sword chi blew, like the wind sweeping away the clouds, drifting in all directions. Looking at this scene, Tang Zheng and the other two simultaneously felt a strong sense of oppression. Especially Li Xiaotian, it was especially strong. Shua. With a flash of sword light, Battle Soul appeared in Tang Zheng's hand. At that time, Qiyu controlled Battle Soul and flew in the air. After Qiyu left Tang Zheng's body, the control of Battle Soul fell back into Tang Zheng's hands. Tang Zheng questioned the Sword Soul as to why this happened, but the Sword Soul did not know what to do and could not give an answer. In the end, Tang Zheng had no way to pursue the matter, and could only act as if nothing had happened and continue to use Battle Soul. Indeed, Battle Soul did not malfunction again. Good sword. Moi's eyes lit up and could not help but praise. Of course, Tang Zheng said it was a good sword. Tang Zheng, be careful. He is also a sword expert, and is best at finding the loopholes in other people's sword techniques. Empyrean Fairy reminded. Tang Zheng was shocked. A swordsman was very powerful, but under normal circumstances, his own sword techniques were good. But other than Moi's extraordinary sword techniques, the most praiseworthy thing was that he was good at finding the loopholes in other people's sword techniques. This was extraordinary. This was because only a person whose swordsmanship and cultivation had reached the acme of perfection could achieve this in a short period of time. From this, it could be seen that Moi's cultivation was extraordinary. Moi did not bat an eyelid. He did not mind that Empyrean Fairy had seen through his specialty. Tang Zheng was 120% alert. After Battle Soul stabbed out, he was fully focused and used all his skills. Emosia didn't see it at all. She lightly raised her arm and casually drew a line in the air, like in removing the surface of a lake. With a splash, ripples appeared on the surface of the lake, but in reality, the air was stirred up incessantly. It was like 1,000 layers of waves, and in an instant, it arrived in front of Tang Zheng. With a heavy momentum, the incomparably sharp War Soul Sword's attack suddenly deviated and landed on the ground, causing a huge crack to spread out from under his feet. Rumble. A large chunk of the mountain peak was shaved off. The rolling boulders fell straight down the mountain, causing an even bigger avalanche. It was as if the mountain was collapsing and the earth was cracking. However, the people on the mountain peak did not have the slightest reaction. They were even stingy with the slightest bit of superfluous glances. Tang Zheng's expression changed drastically. He was well aware of the power of his sword, but it was easily neutralized by his opponent. The difficulty of this was not something that could be explained in a few words. From this, it could be seen how high Emosia's cultivation was, and how exquisite her swordsmanship was. Your sword technique is too inferior compared to my sword. Emosia shook his head, as if he felt that it was a pity for the War Soul Sword. The Divine Sword did not have a corresponding sword technique, which was a pity for sword practitioners. Is that so? I don't think so. For a long time, Tang Zheng thought that his heaven-flying immortal sword technique was perfect, and that it was a sword technique that he could rely on to protect his life. But later on, as his cultivation and vision increased, he realized the shortcomings and limitations of the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique. When he saw the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique, he immediately understood that this was a sword technique that was of a higher level and more powerful than the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique. Now that Mo Xie had pointed out the inadequacy of the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique, although this was an indisputable fact, Tang Zheng subconsciously did not want to admit it and refuted it without hesitation. Mo Xie's mouth hooked up into a devilish smile, which was enough to captivate most women. He said unconcernedly, "There is no need to argue about the facts. If you don't believe me, you can attack again. We can sit down and discuss the sword." Shua. The sword light rose again, and Tang Zheng was unconvinced as he attacked again. This time, the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique was even more fierce, dazzling the eyes. Sword chi crisscrossed, like an inescapable net, covering every direction of Mo Xie, and even every direction that he would change. This move seemed perfect, and even Tang Zheng felt that he had displayed the pinnacle of the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique. It was not inferior to the one that Tian Chanzi had taught him. Mo Xie smiled and commented, "The more perfect a sword technique seems, the more flaws there are. This is because perfection is only for oneself. For others, there is no sword technique in the world that can reach the realm of perfection. Everyone can see through the flaws, and the decisive factor is the level of one's vision and cultivation." Tang Zheng could not help but admit that Mo Xie's words were reasonable, but he still heavily snorted and used all of his strength on this sword. "You won't give up until you reach the Yellow River. Then I will fulfill your wish." Mo Xie said coldly and waved his finger again. Ka. The war soul sword stopped, and it stopped in the middle of two fingers. Mo Xie actually used two fingers to easily clamp down on the battle soul sword. This was truly unimaginable, causing people to be flabbergasted and find it hard to believe. Tang Zheng's expression suddenly changed, and his voice also changed a bit. He asked absent-mindedly, "How did you do this?" Mo Xie smiled and said, "I told you your sword technique has flaws. As long as you find the flaws, breaking your sword technique is easy." If Mo Xie had said this before, perhaps it would have been boastful, but now the truth was in front of him. Even if Tang Zheng did not believe it, it was an undeniable fact. He could not help but feel a bit dejected. He had practiced the heaven-flying immortal sword technique for so long, and had defeated countless enemies, but it was actually so easily defeated by Mo Xie. This feeling of defeat was too strong. If Tian Chanzi saw this scene, he would definitely be even more depressed. This was because the heaven-flying immortal sword technique was Kingsiman's high-level sword technique. It was the sword technique that all the disciples in the sect wanted to practice. But in front of Mo Xie, this seemingly invincible sword technique was like a clay chicken or a pottery dog, unable to withstand a single blow. How could this huge contrast not make people feel a mixture of feelings and be incomparably depressed? But Tang Zheng's depression disappeared in a flash. He did not truly lose, and he still had a move. Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique. In the past, he would forget the Tai Chi Yin Yang sword technique at any time. Unless it was a critical moment, he would not be able to remember the sword moves. However, ever since he had completely mastered the 6 moves of the first level of this set of sword technique, the Taiji dual form sword technique had undergone a qualitative change. It no longer disappeared without a trace in his mind, but appeared clearly in his mind. Those sword moves that he had already memorized by heart. With just a thought, the sword moves would be extremely powerful. The 6 moves of the first level of the Taiji Yin and Yang swordsmanship were completely displayed by him in a flash. Immediately, a gust of wind blew over the mountain peak. Sand and pebbles flew up into the air and intertwined into a special pattern. The Taiji Yin and Yang fish. Mo Xie cried out in surprise. He stared straight at the sky, and then looked at the sword technique that Tang Zheng displayed so easily. He seemed to be deep in thought, and said in amazement, "This sword technique is as different as heaven and earth from the previous one. One is like the stars in the 9th heaven, and the other is like a spark in the mortal world. There is no way to compare them." Tang Zheng was surprised. Although he knew that the Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique was superior to the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, he did not expect it to be superior to this extent. Mosie's comment was definitely not simple. He praised the Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique to an extremely high position. This was something that Tang Zheng did not expect. Even the Empyrean fairy, who was watching from the side, was secretly amazed. She had once heard that on the path of the sword, no matter if it was an expert who had been famous for a long time or a new rising star, as long as the other party did not enter Mosie's discerning eyes, then it would be very difficult for him to even give a few words of evaluation, let alone praise. The Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique broke this habit. There was only one explanation for this, and that was that the Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique was so powerful that it won Mosie's favor. Although Tang Zheng did not understand the specific situation, he vaguely guessed this point. He was both happy and curious. What other treasures were hidden in the Langya Pavilion? This sword technique was from the Langya Pavilion. In addition, if the treasures hidden in the higher floors were to appear, it would probably cause an even greater shock and its power would be greater. He could not help but look forward to the next trip to the Langya Pavilion. Speaking of which, he did indeed have the qualifications to go to the Langya Pavilion. He had already made the decision to go to the Langya Pavilion as soon as this matter was over. Now that the enemy was getting stronger, if he did not learn more powerful skills or pass them on to the people around him to increase their strength, then the situation on his side would be very bad. Swish, swish, swish. The Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish spun quickly. Streaks of sword light fell from the sky like a rain of swords, falling towards Mosie. All the attacks gathered together to attack Mosie alone. It could be seen how much importance Tang Zheng attached to him. Mosie's expression became a bit gloomy for the first time. He looked at Tang Zheng with burning eyes and said, "I really underestimated you. I don't know who taught you this sword technique. But without a doubt, the person who created this sword technique must be a peerless genius." After a slight pause, Mosie said with emotion, "There are geniuses in the Pinnacle Mountain generation. If so, in the years that I disappeared, the world has changed so much. Not only the mountains, rivers, and lakes, but even the development of sword techniques is so praiseworthy. It is really a fortunate thing." Tang Zheng did not know who created the Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique, but he had long admired him from the bottom of his heart. Hearing Mosie's praise, Tang Zheng did not thank him. Instead, he continuously activated the Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword technique. Swish, swish, swish. Swords fell like rain. Tens of thousands of swords shot towards Mosie. Swish. A streak of sword light lit up from Mosie's hand. The sword light bloomed from his hand. It did not have the brilliant brilliance of 1,000 fathoms. Instead, it returned to its original state. It was extremely simple, with only the tip of the sword shining with a little bit of light. But without a doubt, this was a good sword. No matter if it was an amateur or an expert, as long as they saw this sword, they would not hesitate to praise it as a good sword. It was indeed a good sword. It was the divine weapon that accompanied Mosie on his expeditions to the north and south, Ganjiang. Ganjiang was the name of this sword. It was very domineering. Back in the day, it was transported to the north and south of the river. The combination of Ganjiang and Mosie caused the enemies to tremble in fear. One was merciful, the other was bloodthirsty. When the Ganjiang sword was refined, it used human blood and lives as a sacrifice. It was full of ruthless blood energy. It was a peerless weapon. Only a merciful person could use this sword. Chapter 1142. Mosie Wave Battle Soul, and the originally bright Battle Soul immediately underwent an earth-shattering change, turning into a blood-red color with light flowing around it. The sword light suddenly rose up like a waterfall, rushing towards the sky to welcome the rain of swords falling from the sky. Boom boom boom. The sword light flickered in the air, overflowing with brilliant colors, but disappeared without a trace in an instant. The Ganjiang sword flew into the sky and rushed into the Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish. Kacha. Like a sudden clap of thunder, the Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish split into pieces, turning into a cloud of dust that drifted away with the wind. A red light streaked across the sky. the Ganjiang sword slicing through the air towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He raised the War Soul sword, and with a ding-dang sound, Tang Zheng flew out with the War Soul sword, landing on the edge of the cliff, almost falling down. Good. When the other Yellow Emperor's old subordinates saw this scene, they all clapped their hands in joy. Previously, they were fiercely suppressed by Tang Zheng and the other two, and this resentment was hard to get rid of. Li Xiaotian came to Tang Zheng's side like a gust of wind, supporting him and asking with concern, "How are you?" Tang Zheng shook his head, swallowing back the blood in his mouth, and said, "His sword technique is really powerful." Just now, the opponent's attack had defeated his Tai Chi Yin-Yang sword, and it was defeated in a single exchange. It could be seen how powerful the opponent's sword technique was. Mo Xie's expression was not good. He looked at Tang Zheng and said, "You can be proud because just now I used my sword technique to defeat you, not to find the flaw in your sword technique." Mo Xie did not find the flaw in Tang Zheng's sword technique. When the others heard this, their expressions changed greatly, because they understood the meaning of this sentence too well. Tang Zheng's sword technique was definitely very exquisite, so even Mo Xie was unable to find his flaw in such a short time. Why did he have this kind of luck, to be able to cultivate such an extraordinary sword technique? In addition, if his attainments in this sword technique were to become even more profound in the future, would Mo Xie still be his opponent? Immediately, many people had murderous intentions towards Tang Zheng. They made up their minds that this time, they had to keep him here. They couldn't let the tiger return to the mountain. Tang Zheng did not know what these people were thinking. He simply realized that the Taiji dual form sword technique was extraordinary. What sword technique is that? Mo Xie couldn't help but ask curiously. Taiji duality sword art. Mo Xie furrowed his brows. Clearly, he had never heard of this sword technique. With his seniority, if he hadn't heard of this sword technique, then it must have only appeared after his death. Who was this kind of genius that actually created this set of sword techniques? Mo Xie's heart skipped a beat. If he could meet such a master swordsman, then his life would not be in vain. Good sword technique. The Taiji gives birth to the yin and yang, interlocking and complementing each other. It contains the Tao of heaven and earth. Do you know who created it? Mo Xie was not stingy with her praise. Tang Zheng shook his head. He also wanted to know who created the Taiji dual form sword technique, but there were no records of it in the Langya Pavilion. Seeing Tang Zheng shake his head, Mo Xie could not hide the disappointment on his face. "General Mo, kill him to prevent future troubles." The others shouted. Mo Xie was a general under the Yellow Emperor. These people were of lower rank than him, so they called him General Mo. Mo Xie's sword was pointed straight at Tang Zheng. The blood-red sword light flashed, and the sharp sword chi shattered the surrounding air, turning it into a vacuum. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. He understood that the other party wanted to kill him, so he became even more alert. Xian knew of the 9 heavens took light steps and stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him as she stared at Mo Xie. Mo Xie calmly looked at the Empyrean fairy and said, "You are indeed extraordinary. Even your magic treasure is extraordinary. If you want to stand up for him, then let's first determine a victor. Although I don't kill women in my life, since you are an enemy, then you are not included in the list." The 9th heaven mystical maiden was as cold as ice. Mo Xie was poles apart from the rumors, which made her feel rather gloomy. She stiffly said, To kill a woman, you need to have the ability to do so." As soon as she finished speaking, she pointed her finger. The mountain river map in midair flickered with a mysterious light, then flew above Mo Xie's head. A huge suction force suddenly appeared, and a tornado swept over, trapping Mo Xie. It was like a strong shackle had locked him down, causing him to be unable to move in an instant. Mo Xie's expression was normal as he said, "Your magic treasure is indeed extraordinary." After he finished speaking, he raised his head to look at the mountain river map and said, "You want to suck me into this magic treasure? It must have the ability to imprison others. It's not simple. There's actually another world inside this magic treasure. However, I presume that you haven't completely grasped the magic of this magic treasure. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so difficult to imprison a person." Emosie's vision was unique. He only needed to take a look to discern the magic of the mountain river map. The mountain river map was passed down to the Empyrean fairy by her father, the Emperor of Heaven. As for the true mysteries of the mountain river map, the Emperor of Heaven didn't explain clearly. He only let the Empyrean fairy explore it herself. The Empyrean fairy had explored it for many years, and had indeed discovered many of the mountain river map's mysteries. Every time she felt that she had discovered the true mystery of the mountain river map, not long after, she would overturn this judgment. In short, the mountain river map was like an endless treasure trove. It was as if it was impossible for people to fully grasp it. The Empyrean fairy's heart moved. She had to admit that Emosie's vision was right. However, the more it was so, the angrier she was. Since he had such unique vision, he could completely benefit the common people. Why did he summon the soul of the golden crow to harm the common people? She shouted and clenched her slender jade-like hands. She shouted, "Mountain river map, return." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The wind blew and the mountain rocks danced. They flew directly toward the mountain river map, and disappeared within it. As for the others, they felt the terrifying attraction, and felt that they couldn't resist at all. Thus they hurriedly dodged in all directions, and avoided the attack range of the mountain river map. The Empyrean fairy didn't distribute the attack power to the others. Thus, when she saw everyone's reaction, she wasn't surprised at all. She didn't care and instead focused on dealing with Emosie. All the attack power of the mountain river map gathered on Emosie. Emosie also felt the strong pressure. He raised the Ganjiang sword. The blood-red sword light rushed into the sky and rushed toward the mountain river map, as if it was going to tear it apart. The two rays of light and power collided in midair. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Tang Zheng knew that he couldn't help, but since the Empyrean fairy had fought for an opportunity for him, he naturally couldn't let such a great opportunity go to waste. Without batting an eyelid, he drew his bow and aimed at another golden crow soul. Stop! Chapter 1143. Just now, Tang Zheng's arrow aimed at the fourth golden crow's soul didn't succeed as expected. It was intercepted by Emosie. Now that Emosie was pinned down by the Empyrean fairy, he had enough time to deal with the golden crow's soul. However, things didn't go as he wished. When he aimed at the fourth golden crow's soul, a delicate cry exploded like thunder. Two people flew up from the mountain peak and blocked Tang Zheng's path. Stop! Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise. It's you two. These two were Lu Wuxin and Yi Meiyu. He didn't expect to meet them here. Humph, haven't you been hiding from me? How dare you show up now? Tang Zheng asked jokingly. Lu Wuxin looked left and right. When he saw Emosie, his eyes lit up and he couldn't hide his joy. Today is different from the past. Why wouldn't we show up? Tang Zheng, you've already fallen into our encirclement. Yet you still dare to shoot down the golden crow's soul. You really don't want to live anymore. Humph, is that so? It's too early to say such big words. Tang Zheng said disapprovingly. Seeing the sudden appearance of the two people, not only was Tang Zheng shocked, but the other old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor also looked at the two in disbelief and shouted, "Who are you people?" Lu Wuxin suddenly turned around. She said with a dignified expression, "You don't even recognize me? I'm Lu Wuxin." With that, she stretched out her palm. With a flash of green light, the heartless willow appeared in her palm and swayed with the wind. Heartless willow! Everyone couldn't help but cry out in surprise. They looked at Lu Wuxin with shining eyes, as if they wanted to see the valiant and heroic aura of the past. However, after looking for a long time, there was no trace of that aura. "You're really General Lu?" Everyone was skeptical. Lu Wuxin's thick brows furrowed as she shouted angrily, "Open your eyes and take a look. How can I be fake?" Without a doubt, Lu Wuxin's aura completely crushed these people. Especially when the Wuxin willow swayed in her palm, it added to her credibility. "She is General Lu." Someone seemed to finally believe her and said loudly. Lu Wuxin looked around complacently, as if he was inspecting his troops. In fact, many of them were her former subordinates. However, after the possession and rebirth, everyone had changed their appearances. For a moment, They did not match up with the people in their memories. Lu Wuxin sighed with emotion. He had almost missed the opportunity to meet these people, and had almost missed the important moment of summoning the Golden Crow's soul. If he hadn't obtained the information from the chief and followed the trail all the way here, it would have been difficult for him to meet up with the rest of the troops. Back then, when she died on the battlefield, the Yellow Emperor was still alive. When she reincarnated, she found that the Yellow Emperor was already dead, so she wanted to revive the Yellow Emperor. Therefore, she planned to gather her old subordinates and accomplish this feat. Of course, she didn't have a concrete plan before, but she was confident that she could brainstorm a way to revive the Yellow Emperor after gathering her old subordinates. When she found the movement at the peak of the snowy mountain, and the soul of the Golden Crow in the sky, she immediately thought of a way to revive the Yellow Emperor. She impatiently rushed over and coincidentally saw this great battle. Although she did not hear the confrontation between Mo Xie and Tang Zheng, she recognized that the other party was her old acquaintance Mo Xie from the Ganjiang sword. During the Battle of Zhuolu, Lu Wuxin died in battle, but Mo Xie came back to life. Mo Xie was fighting fiercely with the Empyrean fairy. When he saw Lu Wuxin from the corner of his eyes, he immediately confirmed her identity and said, "Lu Wuxin, beat them back. Don't let them harm the Golden Crow's soul." Lu Wuxin nodded seriously. "Don't worry, Mo Xie. With me here, they won't be able to harm the Golden Crow's soul." Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Lu Wuxin. "You're no match for me. What ability do you have to stop me?" "Humph, who says I'm no match for you? I'm no longer the same as before. You can't see through me," Lu Wuxin said proudly. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly contracted and his eyes lit up. He carefully discovered that Lu Wuxin had indeed changed. "Your cultivation has increased?" Lu Wuxin laughed out loud. "You're not completely blind yet." Tang Zheng stared straight at the other party. Judging from her aura, her cultivation was definitely not low. Moreover, since he couldn't see through her, she was probably at the semi-deity realm. "Semi-deity realm?" Lu Wuxin nodded. "You're quite observant." Lu Wuxin's cultivation had indeed reached the first stage of the semi-deity realm. She was different from ordinary cultivators when she was reincarnated. Although she was only at the Yuanying realm when she met Tang Zheng last time, her cultivation was even weaker than Tang Zheng's. However, her cultivation was extremely high when she was alive, far surpassing the Yuanying realm. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for her to recover to the semi-deity realm in time. That was how Mo Xie recovered. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. "So what if you're at the semi-deity realm? Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Tang Zheng's aura changed greatly. His aura surged as if he was a completely different person. Lu Wuxin's eyelids twitched. She had fought Tang Zheng head-on before, so she was well aware of his strength. However, the strength displayed by Tang Zheng at this moment was completely different from what she remembered. "You." Lu Wuxin extended a finger and pointed at Tang Zheng in disbelief. "Your cultivation has increased by so much? How is this possible?" In her impression, it wasn't surprising that Tang Zheng's cultivation had increased by so much that it wasn't inferior to hers. Tang Zheng was cultivating normally, while she was recovering her strength. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. From this, it could be seen that Tang Zheng's cultivation speed was terrifying. "If you can do it, why can't I?" Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Lu Wuxin's face alternated between red and white. She originally thought that she could crush Tang Zheng with her current cultivation and take revenge for the past. However, it seemed that she had thought too highly of herself. Her expression kept changing and her mind turned thousands of times. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. However, she quickly calmed down and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She wasn't alone. She had so many subordinates, so how could she be afraid of him? On the contrary, she could take this opportunity to get rid of him completely. This enemy had to be eliminated, otherwise, when he grew stronger in the future, it would be harder for her to deal with him than to ascend to the heavens. Yi Meiyu had been silent the entire time. When she heard that Tang Zheng had reached the semi-god stage, her entire body trembled, and her eyeballs almost popped out. This was a realm that she did not even dare to dream of. But she never thought that Tang Zheng would be able to do it so easily. The gap between the two of them was getting bigger and bigger, and it was like a natural chasm, causing her to feel a deep sense of powerlessness. Senior, you must not let him go this time. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble in the future. Yi Meiyu clenched her teeth as she fanned the flames. Lu Wuxin snorted and said, I know better than you. When Tang Zheng heard Yi Meiyu's words, he was not surprised at all. Instead, he looked at her with some pity and said, Yi Meiyu, if you get involved with them, not only will you harm yourself, you will also harm the Ye family in the future. Seeing that I still have some relationship with the Ye family, I advise you to rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff, and stop being so obstinate. Yi Meiyu's face revealed a crazed look as she roared sinisterly. Tang Zheng, what right do you have to tell me what to do? I think you should be the one who should rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff. If you go against Senior, you will die without a burial ground. I want to see how heartbroken that bitchy ding-dang will be at that time, ha ha ha. Tang Zheng raised his thick eyebrows, killing intent surging in his eyes. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to insult ding-dang? Whiz. Before he finished speaking, Tang Zheng moved, like a whirlwind. He rushed towards Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu was shocked and retreated in panic. The reason she dared to shout at Tang Zheng was because she had Lu Wuxin's support. She actually knew very well that she was not a match for Tang Zheng at all. She had no chance of winning against him, and would only be asking for humiliation. Stop with me here, how can you be so presumptuous? Seeing that, Lu Wuxin took a step forward and arrived in front of Tang Zheng. The Wuxin Lu and his hand danced in the air. A green light flashed, and swept towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng dodged to the side, barely dodging the attack of the Wuxin Lu, and extended his long arm. Pow! A loud slap rang out, and Yi Meiyu's face immediately had the imprint of Tang Zheng's 5 fingers. Her cheeks quickly swelled up, making her look extremely miserable. You! Yi Meiyu covered her face in disbelief. She did not expect that Lu Wuxin would not be able to stop Tang Zheng, and instead let him succeed. However, she did not know that Tang Zheng had the intention to kill her. If not for Lu Wuxin stopping her, it would not have been just a slap, but her life. However, she did not know the details. Instead, she glared at Lu Wuxin's back and cursed in her heart. Then, she glared at Tang Zheng as if she was about to spit fire. Tang Zheng ignored him and said with killing intent, If you dare to let me hear you speak rudely to Ding Dang again, I will definitely kill you, I promise. Yi Meiyu's heart turned cold. She was both embarrassed and angry, but she did not dare to refute, as she was completely intimidated by Tang Zheng's aura. A look of anger also flashed across Lu Wuxin's face. Tang Zheng had actually dodged her attack so easily. That slap not only hit Yi Meiyu's face, it was also equivalent to hitting her face. Especially when the others saw this scene, the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates were in disbelief, and their expressions changed when they looked at Tang Zheng and Lu Wuxin. Lu Wuxin felt his cheeks burning, and felt that he had definitely lost a lot of face in the hearts of the old subordinates. Immediately, she flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared, Tang Zheng, I will kill you. Shua. The Wuxin Lu grew crazily. The willow branches danced in the air, sweeping towards Tang Zheng like a vicious whip. Tang Zheng did not retreat at all. He raised his sword and stabbed forward. This time, he did not use the Flying Immortals from Outer Sky sword technique, but used the Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique. His Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique was becoming more and more proficient. With a flash of sword light, the surrounding qi underwent a huge change. Chapter 1144. Yi Meiyu was not familiar with Li Xiaotian. She only knew that she was once the holy maiden of the Li Palace. At that time, she was high and mighty, and even Yi Xuanji had to respect her, so she was not someone she could come into contact with. Sizzle. However, this was different from the past. She, Yi Meiyu, was not a match for Tang Zheng, but how could she not deal with a remnant of the Li Palace? With a shout, she attacked Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian was not an ordinary person either. The bow in his hand flashed with a cold light, and shot towards Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu was a Yuanying Stage 1 cultivator, 2 levels higher than Li Xiaotian's Stage 8 Great Master. But Li Xiaotian's battle experience was far richer than Yi Meiyu's. Seeing the arrow flying towards her, Yimeyu revealed a look of contempt and easily dodged it. She extended her hand and directly grabbed towards Li Xiaotian. Seeing that she had easily dodged his attack, Li Xiaotian's heart flashed with a trace of surprise, but he did not panic. Instead, he calmly moved his finger. Whiz! The arrow behind Yimeyu suddenly changed direction and turned back, shooting towards Yimeyu's back. Hearing the sound of the wind behind her, Yimeyu finally realized that something was wrong. She was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. It was already too late to turn around, and she only had time to move half a step to the left. Puff! The arrow brushed past her shoulder, bringing with it a dazzling stream of blood. Hiss! Yimeyu sucked in a breath of cold air, her brows knitted together, and she became furious. You can actually hurt me too. The corner of Li Xiaotian's mouth hooked up into a devilish smile, causing all living things to turn upside down. Without saying a word, he hooked his finger again, and the arrow seemed to be controlled by his arm. It was extremely agile, and shot towards Yimeyu's chest. You're still coming. Yimeyu growled. Puff! The arrow hit Yimeyu's body, and blood flowed down her chest. Li Xiaotian heaved a sigh of relief. The arrow had hit her heart. She was dead for sure. However, in the next second, she saw an unbelievable scene. Yimeyu actually raised her head again, and the corner of her mouth revealed a strange smile that made one's hair stand on end. What happened? Li Xiaotian's brain suddenly froze, as if he had seen a ghost, because she was very confident in her arrow. How could Yimeyu still laugh? Bam! Yimeyu grabbed the arrow and broke it into two. As if nothing had happened, she swaggered towards Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian subconsciously took a step back, then immediately stopped himself. He stared at Yimeyu with wide eyes and asked, "What kind of spell is this? How did you not die?" Yimeyu laughed sinisterly. "You want to kill me with this little trick? Dream on." If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would probably be scared out of their wits. However, Yimeyu had experienced hundreds of battles, and her nerves had been tested countless times. Even if this was beyond common sense, she was not scared out of her wits. Instead, she gritted her teeth and erupted with endless fighting spirit. She once again drew her bow and shot towards Yimeyu. Whiz! The sharp arrow surged through the air, leaving behind a long tail. However, Yimeyu extended her index finger and lightly tapped the air. The arrow stopped, and the attack came to an abrupt stop, as if it had been immobilized. Li Xiaotian's eyes widened again. She was very clear about the power of her arrow, but she did not expect it to be so easily resolved by the other party. Was there such a huge gap between her cultivation and Yimeyu's? She could not help but feel a sense of defeat. Yimeyu held onto the arrow and walked step by step to Li Xiaotian's side. She aimed the arrow at Li Xiaotian's heart and slowly poked it over. How could Li Xiaotian just sit there and wait for death? She immediately moved to the side, but to her horror, she found that she could not move at all, as if her feet had grown roots. What's going on? What did you do to me? The fear in Li Xiaotian's heart quickly spread as she shouted loudly. The smile on Yimeyu's face became even more sinister. She thought to herself, "How can you break my traceless dream spell? You're not Tangzheng, who can break my traceless dream spell time and time again." Li Xiaotian watched as the arrow pierced her heart, but she was powerless. The fear of death instantly enveloped her body and mind. She tried to struggle, but to no avail. Li Xiaotian, wake up. You're dreaming. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from the sky, exploding in her ears like a clap of thunder. Her entire body trembled, and her heart trembled. Could it be that this was really a dream? That voice was clearly Tangzheng's voice. She quickly closed her eyes and tried her best to tell herself that this was a dream and not to believe what she was seeing. Although she did not know the traceless dream of nightmare, she knew that this voice definitely did not ring in her ears for no reason. There was definitely something fishy going on. Although she could not figure out the reason for the time being, she still used her own experience to deal with it. She focused all of her attention and abandoned all distracting thoughts to deal with all of this. Sure enough, when she opened her eyes again, everything in front of her had changed. She regained her freedom of movement. The arrow in Yimeyu's hand had already pierced her chest and was close to her clothes. He quickly retreated and shot another arrow. Yi Meiyu did not expect that the other party would escape at the last moment. She hurriedly retreated and dodged the arrow. She gritted her teeth and stared at Tang Zheng in the distance. If not for Tang Zheng discovering the clues and shouting, Li Xiaotian would have died without a doubt. Just now Li Xiaotian stood in place like a puppet, waiting for death. He was like a fish on Yi Meiyu's chopping board, waiting for her to slaughter him. Tang Zheng understood Yi Meiyu's methods very well, and immediately realized that Li Xiaotian had fallen into a dream, so he quickly reminded him loudly. At last, Li Xiaotian narrowly escaped the calamity. The others also saw this scene. The former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor all knew of the great name of the Nightmare and his traceless dream spell. They immediately realized that Yi Meiyu had used this spell and couldn't help but be curious. Even Mo Xie, who was fighting fiercely with the Empyrean fairy, couldn't help but look at Yi Meiyu with a slightly different gaze. The most fundamental reason for all of this was because the Nightmare's spell was too strange. Back then, he was the only one who knew how to use the traceless dream. This was because the physique required to cultivate this spell was very special. It was not something that ordinary people could casually cultivate. But at this moment, Yi Meiyu had successfully used it, and from the looks of it, the power was not bad. Didn't this mean that the Nightmare had also been revived? With the Nightmare Lord, their strength would rise to a whole new level. This was something worth celebrating. Lu Wuxin obviously understood everyone's thoughts and said regretfully, "Nightmare is no longer here. It was all because of this group of people. Yi Meiyu is Nightmare's disciple." Hearing this, it was as if thunder had struck the ground. Nightmare was so powerful, and he had the traceless dream spell, but he had actually fallen into the hands of these people. It was too inconceivable. Kill them and take revenge for the Nightmare. Someone shouted, stirring up the crowd. Mo Xie's eyes were also filled with killing intent. When he was alive, he and Nightmare were good friends. When he heard that his old friend had actually died in the hands of these people, the killing intent on his body poured out. It was extremely terrifying. Seeing that these people had been deceived by Yi Meiyu again, Tang Zheng hurriedly reminded them loudly. "Don't believe her words. We didn't kill the Nightmare. It was his good disciple Yi Meiyu." Tang Zheng, at this point, "Do you still want to splash dirty water on me? Master died in your hands. I don't have the strength to avenge him. It's because I'm useless as a disciple. Seniors, please help me, avenge my master, and kill this person." Yi Meiyu pleaded pitifully. "Yes, kill him. He actually dares to slander Nightmare's disciple. Do you really think we're fools?" The voices of condemnation rose and fell, obviously not believing Tang Zheng's words. Tang Zheng sighed helplessly, thinking to himself, "If you guys aren't fools, then what are you?" Yi Meiyu was truly a good actress. He had no way of exposing her lies, so he decided not to waste his breath. A hint of cunning and complacency flashed across Yi Meiyu's eyes. The others no longer sat idly by, and attacked together, most of them attacking Tang Zheng. It was obvious that he was the primary target. The pressure on Tang Zheng increased sharply. When he was facing Lu Wuxin, both sides were evenly matched and could not determine the victor for the time being. However, once the others joined in, he was clearly at a disadvantage. He fought and retreated, gradually retreating to the edge of the cliff. At the same time, the soul of the golden crow that was originally imprisoned by the Empyrean fairy's power in the sky finally broke free and soared into the sky, transforming into a sun that hung high above the 9 heavens. Immediately, other than the 3 souls of the golden crow that were shot down by Tang Zheng, the remaining 6 souls of the golden crow, along with the original sun hanging high above their heads, descended from the sky and sprinkled down on the people's bodies. It was as if they were in a sauna, and large beads of sweat appeared all over their bodies. This group of powerful cultivators, who were almost invulnerable to cold and heat, felt uncomfortable under the roasting of the 7 suns. Tang Zheng wiped the beads of sweat off his forehead. Looking at the crowd that was charging towards him again, he secretly clenched his teeth. He had already repelled the other party's attack once, but the tidal wave of attacks swept over again, causing him to be unable to deal with it. He had the intention to kill, so a few people died under his sword. This reminded him of his opponent's bloodthirst and anger. and the battle became more and more intense. The battle between the Empyrean Fairy and Mosia was too intense. It was too big and earth-shattering. The others wanted to interfere, but they did not have the strength to do so. These people all turned their firepower to Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian's body was already covered in wounds, although she had broken Yi Meiyu's Heart Dream Traceless spell. However, in a real face-to-face battle, especially when facing so many enemies, her cultivation was still too weak. Li Xiaotian once again realized her own shortcomings. Previously, she thought that her cultivation was advancing at a godly speed, but now, she realized that the current situation was not as good as before. In the past, the Great Master Realm could run amok, but now the Great Master Realm was not enough. The return of this group of cultivators had completely broken the original world's power system and balance, causing people to feel a sense of powerlessness and frustration. Chapter 1145. Seeing Tang Zheng injured, the others were shocked. The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates were wild with joy, shouting, "Everyone work harder! He can't hold on much longer!" Swoosh! Swoosh! The crowd once more swept over like a tide. Tang Zheng had no choice but to roar, "For Symbol's venerables!" Rumble! Amidst the loud noise, Tang Zheng appeared in front of everyone. The power of his feet directly shattered the ground, causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. His aura was terrifying. This is the Four Symbols Venerables. These people were not unfamiliar with the Four Symbols Venerables, because the Four Symbols Venerables belonged to Qiyu. Back then, they had contributed greatly to the Nine Li tribe's expansion of territory. He's from the Nine Li tribe, and he's in cahoots with Qiyu. We can't let him go. Yes, he's a celestial, the same as Qiyu. This kind of person is our enemy. We can't let a tiger return to the mountains. The crowd was stirred up, and their killing intent soared. They glared at Tang Zheng with red eyes, wishing they could immediately cut him into pieces. The appearance of the Four Symbols Venerables confirmed Tang Zheng's identity, causing an even greater reaction. Tang Zheng coldly snorted, not minding it at all. He leapt onto the Four Symbols Venerables, disappearing in a flash. When the others saw this, their shock could be imagined. In the ancient era, the Four Symbols Venerables had been controlled by Qiyu. Now they had actually fallen into Tang Zheng's hands. Just what kind of relationship did they have with Qiyu? It was no wonder he had spent so much effort to ruin their plans and kill the Golden Crow's soul. It turned out that he was in cahoots with Qiyu. The truth was revealed. "For Symbols Venerables, kill!" shouted Tang Zheng. Ever since the Four Symbols Venerables had fought in the ghost world, they had ceased all activities and recuperated. Tang Zheng had not used them again. On the contrary, the Azura had temporarily taken their place and fought several times. Of course, the Shura was stronger than the Four Symbols Venerables, but the Shura could not be controlled, and there were too many variables. Unless he had no other choice, he definitely would not have let the Shura out. With a boom, the Four Symbols Venerables stomped heavily on the ground, causing the mountain peak to shake. With a wave of his fist, his giant arm directly swept the people in front of him away, causing them to fall to the ground in a sorry state. Lu Wuxin felt her teeth ache when she saw this scene. She had originally thought that she was going to win, but this kind of thing happened. How could she not be scared witless? However, the situation was dire, and she had no way out at all. As a result, she let out a low roar and activated her spell. The Heartless Willow swelled, and with a flash of green light, it rapidly entangled the Four Symbols Venerable. The Four Symbols Venerable's pitch-black eyes shone with a dim light. He lowered his head and glanced at the entangled Heartless Willow. The tremendous pressure contracted inward, as if it wanted to crush the Four Symbols Venerable to pieces. Do you think you can trap me like this?" Tang Zheng's voice rang out from within the body of the Four Symbols warrior. Lu Wuxin's expression changed abruptly as he watched the Four Symbols Venerables grab the willow branch and pull it violently. Pa pa pa, the willow branch broke into pieces. Lu Wuxin staggered back. The Four Symbols Venerable strode forward and stood in front of Lu Wuxin. He looked down at her condescendingly, and his giant fist pounded toward her with a whoosh. Lu Wuxin took a deep breath and let out a loud roar. The The heartless willow shone brightly and instantly fell to the ground. Like bamboo shoots after a rain, it rapidly grew as soon as it touched the ground. In the blink of an eye, the heartless willow grew into a giant willow tree. Thousands of branches drooped down like a canopy, slender and elegant as it stood above Lu Wuxin's head. Bang! The four symbols' venerable's fist landed on the heartless willow. Light surged, and the people around were sent flying in all directions in a sorry state. After the light dissipated, the four symbols' venerable stood proudly. The heartless willow, on the other hand, was much more dilapidated. Like a withered willow, branches and leaves fell to the ground, looking especially bleak. Lu Wuxin's face was deathly pale as she looked at this scene in disbelief. Pooh! Suddenly, she opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face became even paler and somewhat sickly. The heartless willow was heavily injured, and as its owner, she was also very uncomfortable. You! Lu Wuxin pointed at Tang Zheng, intermittently, unable to catch her breath, and spat out another mouthful of blood. In this battle, there was no doubt that Tang Zheng had won, and Lu Wuxin had lost. Lu Wuxin, who everyone had placed high hopes on, had lost so thoroughly that no one was prepared for it. Tang Zheng did not have the mood to be sentimental, because Li Xiaoyan's situation was too dangerous, and his body was already injured. He hurriedly moved over. Bang, 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 one attack after another struck the four symbols' venerable, causing sparks to fly, but the four symbols' venerable was not injured at all. Seeing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and subconsciously retreated. Especially Yi Meiyu. She fled faster than the others, hiding at the back of the crowd in a flash. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. Where do you think you're going? His fist went straight for Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu had the traceless heart dream technique, but she was unable to use it. Tang Zheng had already left a deep shadow in her heart, causing her to be unable to resist. Bang! At the last moment, Yi Meiyu relied on her remaining awareness of danger to dodge. However, she did not completely dodge. She still took the punch and flew down the cliff. Li Xiaotian secretly heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the four symbols' venerable with a complicated expression. She was extremely familiar with the four symbols' venerable. However, seeing it fight this time, she was still deeply shocked. On the other side, the battle between the Empyrean Fairy and Mo Xia was in full swing. They were both talented people with their own strengths, and it was difficult to determine the victor. Tang Zheng, shoot down all the souls of the Golden Crow. Empyrean Fairy urged. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He once again took out the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow. This time it was the four symbols venerable who pulled the bow and arrow. The heaven-shocking bow was pulled into the shape of a full moon. The shooting sun arrow flickered with a cold light, aiming at the fourth soul of the Golden Crow. Whiz! The shooting sun arrow left the bowstring. Boom! Boom! With two loud sounds, the shooting sun arrow actually hit two souls of the Golden Crow consecutively. The souls of the Golden Crow exploded into balls of fire and scattered down from the sky. Immediately, there were only 5 suns and 4 souls of the Golden Crow left in the sky. When the others saw this scene, many of them were stunned. The soul of the Golden Crow was their hope, but it had fallen just like that. How were they going to revive the Yellow Emperor? This was Qiyu's scheme. He purposely let Tang Zheng stir up this matter. He could not be allowed to continue. Everyone looked at each other, and as if they had a tacit understanding, their eyes became resolute as they silently charged towards the four symbols venerable. At this moment, the world seemed to have quieted down, and only the sound of the wind could be heard as they swept through the air. Bang, bang, bang. A series of attacks landed on the four symbols venerable's body like a tidal wave. Even though the four symbols venerable was incomparably sturdy, he still began to sway, and was no longer able to concentrate on drawing the bow. Everyone worked together and take him down. Lu Wuxin also rushed up once again, crazily attacking the four symbols venerable as if he didn't care about his life. Boom! With a loud sound, the four symbols venerable fell to the ground, crushing a cliff and falling down from the sky. In space, several satellites aimed at the peak of the snowy mountain, capturing this scene in real time, not missing a single shot or detail. This was because the people sent by the chief had been following this group of people, and finally discovered that they had climbed to the peak of the snowy mountain. Although these people could not catch up, the country's technological prowess was immense, and they immediately mobilized the satellites to investigate, capturing everything that had happened at the peak of the snowy mountain. In the capital, the chief was at a secret location, looking at the satellite footage, so shocked that he was speechless. The gusts of cold wind from the central air conditioner did not make him feel much of a chill. Instead, he was sweating profusely. He had received reports of the 10 suns hanging in the sky, as well as everything that had happened outside, and he understood that this was a catastrophe. He did not know who this group of cultivators was, but he was sure that they had something to do with Lu Wuxin. This was because he had already seen Lu Wuxin's figure on the satellite footage. When he saw Tang Zheng shoot down the soul of the golden crow, he had the urge to clap his hands in joy. Although he did not get along with Tang Zheng, he had been looking forward to seeing Tang Zheng's actions. "Chief, what should we do?" the subordinate asked anxiously. When the chief saw the remaining souls of the golden crow in the sky, his eyes flashed coldly, and he gritted his teeth, slammed his fist on the desk, and said, "Shoot them down with missiles." Tang Zheng had already fallen from the cliff, so he had no time to care about the souls of the golden crow. So the chief could only think of a solution himself. Although he did not know why these people summoned the souls of the golden crow and created so many suns, he was sure of one thing, and that was that if this continued, not only him, but the entire country would be in trouble, and he would not just watch this happen. He was the chief, and although he was usually selfish, he still clearly knew what to do and what not to do at critical moments. The subordinate obeyed the order and ordered the launch of missiles. Not long after, flames rose from several secret military bases, and a few ground-to-air missiles were launched, flying across the vast sky, leaving a long trail of flames behind, and flying towards the remaining 4 souls of the golden crow. The people on the mountain peak did not notice the strange phenomenon in the sky, and when the missiles were close to the souls of the golden crow, they realized something was wrong, but it was too late to stop it. Boom, 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 boom. 4 loud sounds rang out, and the souls of the golden crow exploded, turning into flames that filled the sky. It was as if a rain of fire was falling from the sky, pattering, and falling from the sky. These souls of the golden crow were basically suspended in the sky above the snowy mountain peak, so the rain of fire also fell around the snowy mountain. Suddenly, like a meteor shower, countless flames fell on the ground like meteorites, smashing large craters and igniting the forest. The flames instantly engulfed the surroundings of the snowy mountain, and the originally white snow, which had melted a lot, immediately changed into a sea of fire, bright red, as if it had changed into another world. The color of the world changed, and the snowy white turned into a fiery red, making people tremble with fear, and their hearts almost jumped out of their throats. The people on the mountain peak subconsciously stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky blankly. The rain of fire fell beside them, but they did not feel it, as if they had lost their souls. "What's going on?" someone muttered to himself. After these people were reincarnated, many of them did not have a detailed and intuitive experience of the current world, let alone the power of technology. Chapter 1146. Li Xiaotian looked up at the sky and was stunned for a moment before he exclaimed, "The missile hit the soul of the golden crow." Missile. Many people shivered, and immediately remembered such a weapon. This was a world completely different from their memories. Apart from true qi and inner strength, there was also the power of technology. Plucking the moon from the sky and catching turtles from the sea was no longer a dream. Or rather, it was no longer a privilege of cultivators. A cold glint flashed through Lu Wuxin's eyes as if he had just woken up from a dream. He said through gritted teeth, "It must be his order." There was no doubt about this. Apart from the chief, who else could be so concerned about cultivators and able to mobilize missiles? Bang! Another loud sound rang out, but this time, it didn't come from the sky but from the foot of the mountain. The venerable of 4 symbols fell off the cliff and landed heavily on the mountain slope, creating a huge crater and causing a huge avalanche. The rumbling sound was like rolling thunder from the sky. Li Xiaotian and the Empyrean fairy were shocked. They rushed to the edge of the cliff and saw the Venerable of Four Symbols' huge body lying in the snow. Suddenly, the Venerable of Four Symbols disappeared. The two of them sighed in relief. This meant that the Venerable of Four Symbols had been sucked into Tangzheng's Sumeru heaven, and that Tangzheng was fine. As expected, a sword gleam blossomed from the snow as Tangzheng flew up on his sword. Li Xiaotian and the Empyrean fairy looked at each other and saw the relief in each other's eyes. Tangzheng flew to the peak of the snowy mountain and looked at the scene in the sky in surprise. What's going on? He didn't see the scene in the sky when he was inside the Venerable of Four Symbols' body, so he didn't know the reason. The missile hit the soul of the golden crow, Li Xiaotian quickly explained. Tangzheng was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped to the ground. Wasn't the chief with Lu Wuxin? Why would he order a missile to attack the soul of the golden crow? He shook his head in confusion, thinking that their relationship as allies wasn't as strong as he thought. No matter what the relationship between the two parties was, or what the chief's motive was, this was undoubtedly something he was happy to see. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Lu Wuxin. Her expression was extremely ugly. Actually, when he thought about it, it made sense. After being stabbed in the back, no one would feel good about it. Lu Wuxin gritted his teeth and secretly made up his mind. After this matter, he would definitely return to the capital and settle the score with the chief. The soul of the golden crow was completely struck, and the heat dissipated. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines, as if they had been doused with a bucket of ice water during the dog days of June. However, Emosie's entire body was burning with an evil fire that could explode at any moment. He hatefully asked, "Who did all of this?" "I know who it is," Lu Wuxin replied. "It can't be anyone else other than the chief." "Who is the leader?" Emosie asked. "I'll take you to him," Lu Wuxin said. Tangzheng looked at this group of people with a mocking expression and said, "What else can you do?" Emosie snorted angrily and looked at Tangzheng with a burning gaze. "Do you think we're helpless just because of this?" Tangzheng was just about to ask the other what else they could do when the inner demons beat him to it. "Young man, don't be happy too early. Although the soul of the golden crow has been struck, it hasn't completely disappeared. If there's a way to gather them together, we can still resurrect the Yellow Emperor." Tangzheng felt as if he had been hit in the head. He looked at the rain of fire falling from the sky in shock and asked, "Could it be that the soul of the golden crow is among those scattered flames?" "Smart." Tangzheng looked at the rain of fire that filled the sky, falling in all directions. There were countless places, and if he wanted to gather all of them back together, it would be an extremely difficult project. Nothing in this world is difficult for those who set their mind to it. If the Yellow Emperor's subordinates didn't even have this bit of willpower and means, how could they have defeated Qiyu back then? The inner demons mercilessly poured a bucket of cold water on him. Tangzheng felt dejected. He had been too naive and beautiful. The people who wanted to kill each other just now fell into a terrifying silence because of the missiles. The Yellow Emperor's subordinates all looked at Emosie. Clearly, they wanted to listen to his orders. Emosie was about to speak when suddenly, Li Xiaotian pointed to the sky and shouted, "Look, there are missiles again." There were indeed missiles in the sky, and there was more than one. They fell from the sky and flew towards the peak of the snowy mountain. Seeing this scene, many people were still confused. They didn't know what was going on. Tangzheng was the first to react. He shouted, "Run!" He pulled Li Xiaotian and flew away from the peak of the snowy mountain. The Empyrean fairy also reacted. These missiles were no longer aimed at the soul of the golden crow, but at them. There were very few people at the peak of the snowy mountain. Other than them, there was no one else. Why not use the missiles to wipe them out in one fell swoop? This was a way to solve the problem once and for all. The leader definitely wouldn't miss this godsend opportunity. The Empyrean fairy rose into the air and flew away. Emosie and Lu Wuxin also reacted at the same time. They shouted, "Let's leave this place quickly." They didn't care about the others and flew away with a whoosh. Boom, 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 boom. The missiles hit the peak of the snowy mountain. However, the powerful shockwave still caused her to suffer greatly, and she almost lost her remaining half of her life. Yi Meiyu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She felt that the sky was about to collapse, especially when she turned around to look at the remaining half of the snowy mountain. Her soul was almost scared out of her body, as she thought that Lu Wuxin and the others had all died inside. When she raised her head to look at the sky, she was pleasantly surprised to find some figures. Only then did she understand that they were not dead. Where's Tangzheng? Are they dead? Yi Meiyu realized that there was no sign of Tangzheng and the others in the crowd, and hurriedly asked. They escaped. Escaped? How could he escape? Yi Meiyu muttered to herself in frustration. She understood that this time, she had truly angered Tangzheng. The next time she faced him, he would definitely use his killing move, and she might not be so lucky this time. Don't worry, you are Nightmare's disciple. With us here, we definitely won't let Tangzheng hurt you. Lu Wuxin patted her shoulder and comforted her. Yi Meiyu felt uneasy and nodded her head resentfully. Emosia, we've lost our soldiers and generals, and we've failed on the verge of success. What should we do now? Lu Wuxin asked Emosia. Back then, she and Emosia were both generals under the Yellow Emperor, but Emosia was more highly regarded by the Yellow Emperor. Unknowingly, Emosia's status was higher. Emosia looked at the messy ground and said, gathering the soul of the golden crow bit by bit is the most important thing. As for the chief, when I settle this matter, I will naturally find him to settle the score. Tangzheng and the other two hid in a hidden place, and looked at this group of people from afar. They couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. The missiles had destroyed a portion of them, but the rest of them were still not to be underestimated. What should we do? Empyrean Fairy did not act rashly, and instead asked Tangzheng. Tangzheng really wanted to rush out and fight another 300 rounds to determine the victor, but he knew that this kind of impulsive action would not have any effect. The strength of this group of people could not be underestimated. Even if he summoned the Azura, he might not be able to wipe them all out. Although they could still gather the soul of the golden crow, the inner demons said that it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. This made Tangzheng feel a lot more at ease. In addition, with the return of the demon clan, Qiyu would definitely be reborn. These people and the demon clan were old enemies, so why not leave them behind to keep the demon clan in check? With this thought in mind, he made a decision. Let's go first. At the same time in the capital, the bureau chief saw the image sent back by the satellite and sat paralyzed on the chair. The attack that he had prepared for was actually unable to wipe out this group of people. Chapter 1147. The despair in the chief's eyes was obvious. Although he had selfish motives, he ordered the missile attack on the soul of the golden crow to protect the common people. However, these people would blame this on him. No matter what, he would not be able to clear his name. The dangers and difficulties he would face would be unimaginable. What should I do? What should I do? He stood up and paced around anxiously, like an ant on a hot pan. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind as he remembered the High Lord Ji Wuxiang. He swore to borrow 100,000 soldiers from me to train the celestial chess. I wonder how effective it is. These people are targeting me. He's the only one who can save me. At this point, he could no longer remain calm, and immediately rushed to a secret military base. A few days later, Tangzheng and the rest returned to the capital. In the streets and alleys, they could clearly feel that the atmosphere had changed. The passers-by looked up at the sky from time to time, as if they were afraid that an extra sun would suddenly appear. The scene from that day was still deeply imprinted in their minds. The feeling of doomsday was so real that many people felt a deep sense of fear. Although the government later refuted the rumors, many experts used all kinds of complicated and profound astronomical knowledge to explain that this was just a rare astronomical phenomenon. However, the general public was not so easily fooled. They snorted and did not believe it at all. A rumor quietly appeared and caused a stir. Many people associated it with the legend of Ho-I shooting down the sun. Could this be the scene in the legend? If so, wouldn't this world be even more dangerous? These speculations did not have enough evidence, but they were very popular and many people believed it. Tangzheng and the rest walked through the streets and alleys and heard bits and pieces. He was not surprised. If the government covered it up, there would naturally be rumors among the people. This was no longer important. When he returned to the capital, Mu Hongyan had also returned. The matter of the pharmaceutical factory had come to an end. The new medicine had finally been released. Mu Hongyan naturally handled these matters, so Tang Zheng did not need to worry. As for the effect of the medicine and the market, Tang Zheng was not worried at all. These medicines could not only cure many diseases, but also strengthen the body. After the Huaxia people took this medicine, their bodies would definitely become stronger. Many Western powers used to scornfully call Huaxia the sick man of East Asia. Now, Huaxia had gone through several generations of arduous struggles, and its national strength was strong, but its body was still incomparable to most Westerners. With this new medicine, Huaxia's body would also rise and become stronger. No one would dare to put the shameful name of the sick man of East Asia on the heads of Huaxia. Tang Zheng's attention did not linger on the new medicine for long, because another piece of news from the elders of the sorcerer tribe attracted everyone's attention. The energy in the crystals on the island was almost depleted. In other words, the crystals were about to disappear, and the scarlet lunar beast was about to come out. The disciples of the sorcerer tribe absorbed the energy of the crystal day and night. Not only did their cultivation increase, more importantly, they could release the red lunar beast to solve the question they had in the past. Tang Zheng could not wait to activate the teleportation array. This time, he was not the only one who wanted to witness the scene of the scarlet lunar beast breaking free. Little Yu was the most excited. It could not stop crying and jumping up and down. Its intelligence was gradually increasing, and it was also curious about its own origin. It was more curious about the same kind of creature in the crystal than the others. The others were also very excited. They were eager to try and look forward to it. In the teleportation array, Tang Zheng, the Empyrean Fairy, and Tian Chanzi were standing in it. They understood the cause and effect of the strange phenomenon in the sky a few days ago, and they were even more worried. If they could take this opportunity to unravel the secret of the Outland, they would be able to find a way to solve their current predicament. Now, Tang Zheng had made enemies on all sides, but this was not his intention. It was just that there were many things in the world that he could not do, and there were many things that he could not ignore. He did not regret it. Even if he was given another chance, he would not hesitate to make the same choice. Especially this time, Mo Xie's actions made him realize that the ancients were not as good as the legends said. They would do anything to achieve their goals. Instead of hoping that their return could make the world a better place, it was more reliable to take the initiative in his own hands. Everyone stand properly. Tang Zheng reminded them and activated the teleportation array. A light flashed, and the scene in front of them changed drastically. They had arrived at the island. The sea breeze blew, and everyone was energized. The elders had been waiting there for a long time, and they all went forward to greet Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, "Elder, let's go and see the red moon beast first." The elder understood and reported as he walked. "Great messenger, we followed your instructions and absorbed the energy of the crystal day and night. With our cultivation, it was like trying to put out a burning cart with a cup of water. We did not know how long it would take for us to finish absorbing the energy of the crystal. However, ever since the Empyrean Fairy came and absorbed the energy for a period of time, the crystal became much thinner. After everyone's hard work, there was finally an effect, and only a thin layer of the crystal was left. We did not dare to act rashly, so we stopped. It was reasonable for the elder to be careful. The mystery and power of the red moon beast could not be explained in a few words. Moreover, this was a serious matter, and they could not afford to be careless. If they continued to absorb the energy and the red moon beast escaped, how could they stop it? The elder did not think that the sorcerer tribe members on the island would be able to stop it. Therefore, he hoped that Tang Zheng would complete the last step. Even if there were any problems, Tang Zheng was more powerful than him, and he would naturally have a way to deal with it. Tang Zheng nodded and praised. "Elder, it's been hard on you. You've done a good job." The elder smiled and said, "We're just following the great messenger's instructions. It's mainly because the great messenger has taught us well." Finally, They arrived in front of the crystal. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the crystal. There was only a thin layer of the crystal left, and it was like a layer of transparent ice. Although it was only a thin layer, it had extraordinary power, and it was able to stop the Red Moon Beast. This was the result of many tests by the sorcerer tribe. They were worried that the Red Moon Beast would break through the thin layer of the crystal and escape. In the end, after many tests, they came to a conclusion that no matter how thin the crystal was, even if it was as thin as a piece of white paper, the Red Moon Beast would not be able to break through. The crystal seemed to have an invisible and mysterious power that was blocking the Red Moon Beast. The Red Moon Beast widened its eyes and stared at the group of uninvited guests. Its gaze was complicated, and it was conveying many things that no one knew. Tangjung also stared at the Red Moon Beast. He stretched out his hand and gently touched the surface of the crystal. He muttered to himself, "Where did you come from? What secrets do you have? Today we'll find out. After you break free, it's best that you don't act rashly to avoid hurting our relationship." The Red Moon Beast rolled its eyes. No one knew if it agreed with Tangjung or disagreed with him. "Is it very powerful?" Feng Shishir asked curiously. "What's there to be afraid of? There are so many of us, and it's only one. Are we not its match?" Yi Dingdang was not afraid of anything, and did not put the Red Moon Beast in its eyes. Wu also nodded fearlessly. "Yes, why would we be afraid of it?" Little Yu walked around the crystal with its 4 legs. There was a complicated look in its eyes. It knew nothing about its own kind. However, there was a feeling of closeness that came from its body, especially now that the crystal had become very thin. This feeling of closeness was especially strong. Xiaobai rode on little Yu's back and looked up at the Red Moon Beast. He chuckled and said, "I have already thought of a name for it. You are called Little Yu, so it will be called Big Yu." As it spoke, it shook its head and waved its 2 claws in the air, as if it was very satisfied with the name it came up with. Little Yu rolled its eyes speechlessly. It was unable to refute. The Red Moon Beast looked at Xiaobai deeply and did not have any reaction. "Master, hurry up and let it out. I can't wait to play with it. I have a feeling that it will definitely be more fun than the 5-clawed golden dragon." Xiaobai urged eagerly. I am not going to play with you. I am not a toy." The 5-clawed golden dragon was indignant, and a little resentful voice sounded in Tangjung's mind. Tangjung looked at the Empyrean Fairy and Tianchanzi and said, "Let's do it together." Although it was only a thin layer of the crystal, the energy it contained could not be underestimated. If Tangjung were to absorb this energy alone, it would take a long time. The 3 of them were all experts in the divine transformation realm. If they worked together to absorb the energy from the crystal, they would be able to shorten the time. The Empyrean Fairy and Tianchanzi also could not wait to see the Red Moon Beast break free. They nodded in understanding and walked in front of the crystal. The 3 of them pressed their hands on the crystal at the same time, and exchanged glances. Then they began to circulate their energy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A powerful energy was transferred from the crystal to the palms of the 3 of them. It stirred up the air around them, and caused the sound of wind to blow. The others opened their eyes wide and stared at this scene. Their eyes were filled with splendor. The 3 of them were very powerful. Therefore, when they started to circulate their energy to absorb the energy from the crystal started to become thinner and thinner at an extremely fast speed. It was as if the others had been immobilized. Their bodies stiffened at the same time. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. The Red Moon Beast's eyes lit up little by little. Its bright eyes gradually turned blood red. They were like 2 blood moons hanging high in the sky. They were filled with a mysterious aura. The eyes of Tangjung and the other 2 also lit up. They could feel an enormous aura from the crystal stone. This aura was filled with ruthlessness, arrogance, and barbarism, causing one's emotions to fluctuate and become agitated. Whoosh! The crystal disappeared from where the Red Moon Beast was standing. Bang! Its 4 limbs landed heavily on the ground, making a uniform sound. After a while, the crystal on its body disappeared as well. Its muscles and bones emitted a crackling sound like thunder. Then the crystal on its head disappeared as well. The crystal on the surface of its body disappeared completely. Chapter 1148. With the disappearance of the crystal, the red lunar beast regained its freedom. It stretched its body and raised its head proudly. Its eyes were glowing red. Purple. Its body was as tall as an adult human. It stomped on the ground with all four of its legs. Its strong muscles showed its strength, and its entire body was emitting an aura that kept people away. Tang Zheng and the other two stood in front of the red lunar beast. Although their expressions did not change, they were ready to attack. If the red lunar beast made any strange moves, they would attack together. Bang! The red lunar beast lifted its leg and stomped on the ground, creating a huge pit. The ground cracked and a gust of wind blew. Many people trembled in fear and looked at the red lunar beast nervously. Red lunar beast, I helped you regain your freedom. Shouldn't you thank me? Tang Zheng asked calmly. You humans are so cunning. Why should I thank you? A cold voice came out from the red lunar beast's throat. Everyone was shocked. They did not expect it to be able to speak. Little you could not speak. It was obvious that it was still a cub and was still weak. Tang Zheng was relieved. Since it could speak, it would be easier to communicate with it. There are thousands of humans. Some are cunning, and some are kind. It's the same with you red lunar beasts. Are there no cunning red lunar beasts? Tang Zheng retorted. Pain flashed in the red lunar beast's eyes. That question seemed to have hit its sore spot. Its eyes became ferocious and it opened its bloody mouth. Roar! With a mad roar, a fishy wind blew over like a gale, messing up everyone's hair. Many of the sorcerer tribesmen were frightened by the roar. They were too weak in front of the red lunar beast's powerful aura, and their minds could not withstand it. Tang Zheng did not step back. He waved his hand and said calmly, a loud voice does not mean that you are right. I'm right. You want to win with your voice? That's not a good idea. The scarlet moon beast was enraged as it bent down. Its large head was inches away from Tang Zheng as it stared at him. Tang Zheng lifted his eyelids, lightly looked at him, and said with an unquestionable tone, I ask you answer. Who do you think you are? The red moon beast said disdainfully. Since I let you out, I can be considered your benefactor. Treating your benefactor like this is not a wise decision. Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed. The red moon beast lifted its feet, and was ready to leave. It did not want to bother with Tang Zheng at all. Tang Zheng and the others looked at each other. They understood that if they did not fight, they would not be able to subdue the red lunar beast. Whoosh! The red moon beast had already launched its attack. Its sharp claws were aimed at Tang Zheng, as if it was going to turn him into a meat patty. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and raised his arm high. Bang! With a loud bang, the fist and the claw collided. Both sides took half a step back at the same time, staring at each other fiercely. The scarlet lunar beast was shocked by Tang Zheng's strength. Tang Zheng was also shocked by the scarlet lunar beast's cultivation. That punch had delivered a lot of information. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. Since the battle had already started, there was no reason to stop. As a result, Tang Zheng's leg flew up and fiercely whipped the scarlet moon beast's head. Bang! The scarlet lunar beast was lying on the ground. The huge impact caused the ground to shake a few times. However, its reaction was also very fast. With a roar, it jumped up and pounced towards Tang Zheng. Swish! Sword light flashed. The battle soul sword appeared and stabbed towards the scarlet lunar beast's abdomen. Whoosh! The scarlet lunar beast's long tail swept over like a whip. The tip of the tail flashed coldly and clashed with the battle soul sword. Sparks flew everywhere. Bang bang bang. In an instant, both sides had launched dozens of attacks. Sparks flew everywhere, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. The Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi did not help. Although the scarlet lunar beast was powerful, Tang Zheng was not a pushover either. He was not worried about losing. The scarlet lunar beast became more and more courageous as it fought. It was obvious that it was recovering its strength after being imprisoned for so many years. Bang! Tang Zheng was finally knocked to the ground. With a pu sound, the war soul sword stabbed into the ground as if it was cutting tofu. Tang Zheng knelt down on one knee and raised his head, his eyes shining as he looked at the scarlet lunar beast. From the previous battle, he had a rough estimation. In terms of combat strength, the scarlet lunar beast was more powerful than him. In other words, It was equivalent to a divine transformation realm cultivator, especially its tail. It was not inferior to a divine weapon, and was more agile than a divine weapon. Because it was a part of its body, its attacks were more powerful. Tang Zheng was not afraid. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised. Since the Scarlet Lunar Beast was so powerful, it meant that little Yu would be as powerful in the future. The Scarlet Lunar Beast did not stop. Instead, it rushed towards Tang Zheng like a madman. It seemed that it would not stop until it defeated him. Empyrean Fairy moved half a step, and was ready to intercept the Scarlet Lunar Beast. However, little Yu was one step ahead of her. With a low roar, she stood in front of Tang Zheng. Xiaobai rode on little Yu's back. He bared his fangs and stretched out his furry claws. He aimed at the Scarlet Lunar Beast and shouted, "Stop!" Bang! The Scarlet Lunar Beast's hooves landed heavily on the ground, splashing rocks. However, it stopped steadily in front of Xiaobai and did not move forward. Xiaobai looked at the Scarlet Lunar Beast angrily and scolded, "How dare you hurt my master? You are asking for a beating." He pretended to swing his claws. The Scarlet Lunar Beast did not dodge. Xiaobai's claws slapped the Scarlet Lunar Beast's face. With a swoosh, the Scarlet Lunar Beast's huge body flew out like a cannonball and crashed into the ground. It was in a sorry state. "Ah!" many people exclaimed. However, Empyrean Fairy and Tang Zheng were not surprised. This was because they had seen the Scarlet Lunar Beast crawling on the ground and kowtowing to Xiaobai. "Humph! Now you know that you are in the wrong. You will not listen to me unless I hit you." Xiaobai was a careless person. He did not seem to realize what this meant and said carelessly. The Scarlet Lunar Beast laid on the ground and did not have any intention of lifting its head. It was trembling in fear. Tang Zheng frowned and walked over. He asked Scarlet Lunar Beast, "Can you answer my question honestly now?" Judging from the Scarlet Lunar Beast's attitude, Tang Zheng thought of a possibility. Xiaobai's background was very mysterious. Even Qiyu could not explain it. Perhaps the Scarlet Lunar Beast knew about Xiaobai's background. It might even have an unusual relationship with Xiaobai. However, the Scarlet Lunar Beast turned a deaf ear to Tang Zheng's question. Seeing this, Xiaobai snorted in dissatisfaction. "How dare you pretend to be deaf and mute and not answer your master's question?" As it spoke, it jumped down from little Yu's back and walked to the Scarlet Lunar Beast's head that was lying on the ground. It stretched out its claws as if it wanted to hit the Scarlet Lunar Beast's head hard. Suddenly, little Yu jumped in front of Xiaobai and protected the Scarlet Lunar Beast. It kept shaking its head at Xiaobai as if it was begging it not to do anything. Little Yu looked at little Yu in surprise and asked, "Little Yu, why are you protecting it?" Little Yu cried out a few times, but no one understood it. Ever since the Scarlet Lunar Beast was freed from the crystal, little Yu felt a strong sense of closeness to it. The Scarlet Lunar Beast was like a relative to it, so it could not bear to see the Scarlet Lunar Beast hurt. Besides that, little Yu also had a sense of respect for Xiaobai from the bottom of its heart. It did not dare to go against it, so it was stuck in the middle, and could only beg for mercy. Xiaobai was confused and looked at little Yu unhappily as if it had betrayed him. He muttered, "Little Yu, although you are the same species as it, it's a bad guy. You're a good kid, so don't trust it." Little Yu cried and shook its head as if it was trying to explain. Seeing this, Tang Zheng interrupted. "Xiaobai, stop fooling around. Ask the Scarlet Lunar Beast where it came from." Tang Zheng knew that the Scarlet Lunar Beast would not listen to him, so he asked Xiaobai to ask on his behalf. Xiaobai responded with an "oh," and asked lazily, "Let me ask you, where did you come from?" The Scarlet Lunar Beast laid its head on the ground and answered loudly, "I came from the Outland." Everyone was shocked. Although they already knew this, they were still shocked when the Scarlet Lunar Beast confirmed it. "Ask it why it came to this world," Tang Zheng asked again. Xiaobai repeated Tang Zheng's question like a mouthpiece. The Scarlet Lunar Beast answered honestly, "I'm here to look for you." "What? Look for me?" Xiaobai was shocked and looked at the Scarlet Lunar Beast in disbelief. "Raise your head. We don't know each other. Why are you here to look for me?" The scarlet lunar beast slowly raised its head and looked at Xiaobai with its big eyes in awe. The awe came from the bottom of its heart and was not fake. When the others heard this, they were shocked. They had thought of many possibilities, but they did not expect this to be the case. The scarlet lunar beast came to this world to look for Xiaobai. What was Xiaobai's identity that made the scarlet lunar beast travel thousands of miles to find him? Everyone's curiosity was piqued. If they could find the answer to this question, many of their doubts would be solved. Because you're the hope of our people, the scarlet lunar beast said excitedly. Hope? Xiaobai was confused. Its little brain was not enough to understand. It turned to look at Tangzheng and asked, Master, I don't understand what it's saying anymore. Ask it who you are, Tangzheng said after pondering for a few seconds. Xiaobai nodded and asked, Who am I? The scarlet lunar beast looked at Xiaobai in shock. It did not understand why Xiaobai did not know its identity. Why are you looking at me like that? Hurry up and answer my question, Xiaobai urged impatiently. The scarlet lunar beast looked like it had just woken up from a dream. It said, You're the king of the outland. What? Exclamations were heard. Not only Tangzheng, but even the Empyrean fairy and the rest shouted at the same time. Their jaws almost dropped to the ground. King of the outland? Are you sure you're not joking? Xiaobai is the holy beast of the sorcerer tribe. How could it be the king of the outland? The difference between the two of them is too big. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.